Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about Minato and Kushina made preparations in case something went wrong on the day of Naruto's birth, leading to change part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. April 29. I'm going to be a father. Minato whispered to himself while lying in his comfortable bed beside his beautiful radiated wife, Uzumaki Kushina. He hadn't been able to get the phrase out of his mind ever since Kushina broke the news a few months ago. He would often repeat the phrase to himself everywhere he went. I'm going to be a father. He could already imagine it, playing with his own son, dining the three of them as a family, and seeing his child grow up to be the best of Kushina and him. I wonder who Naruto will resemble more. His son's name brought a stupid grin to his face, the same grin that had taken a week to wear off when he and Kushina became a couple. He remembered when Kushina told him the name she wanted to choose. They had just finished reading Jiraiya's Tales of a Gutsy Ninja when she suggested the name. At first, he laughed out loud, saying only Kushina would name her son after a ramen topping, but his laughter died as soon as he saw an all but sweet smile on his wife's face, with her red locks flowing menacingly like 9 red tails. Naruto means maelstrom, not as in Narutomaki. And I hope our child grows up to be like the character in Jiraiya-sama's book. Someone who has the determination to never give up, said Kushina after Minato stopped laughing. Minato had spent the next few days trying not to laugh at his wife. In truth, he agreed that it was a great name. He could see that after the initial hilarity of the suggestion wore off just enough for him to think about it. Kushina did have a point. He would like for his son to know the meaning of hard work. Every shinobi had to work hard no matter how talented they were. In fact, Minato believed that the more talented you are, the harder you should work. On one hand, being talented meant that you could become strong enough to protect what you hold dear and achieve your dreams, but on the other. In the shinobi world, being talented meant attracting interest from inside and outside your village. Talented shinobi are often thrown into the fire far quicker than less talented ones. They are expected to succeed at their mission regardless of whether they are ready. They were pushed farther into the pool's deep end if they succeeded. If the shinobi didn't die during this process, they would start gaining a reputation outside their village, which meant a target on their back and a bounty on their head. If said shinobi decided to rest on his laurels and not push himself to higher heights, an early death was the only thing awaiting him. He had seen this happen frequently during his career, promising shinobi dying far quicker than they should because they were served more than they could chew. Minato was even a little guilty of this with his last living student, Kakashi. He thought inside. He had been giving almost as much thought to his young Anbu as his yet-to-be-born son. Maybe being a father wouldn't be so different from being a sensei. I guess Kakashi could use a younger brother. He has barely left Kushina since I assigned him to guard her, he even stays after hours. Thought Minato with a smile. After all, they were the only resemblance of a family I had before marrying Kushina, but Rin and Obito are dead, and Kakashi's mental health was reaching new lows before I assigned him to guard Kushina. A shiver as one as he had never felt made his way through his spine, and suddenly a bone-shearing fear gripped him, and his breath became ragged and shallow. What if something happens to Naruto? What if I'm not fast? Minato's train of thought broke off as Kushina cuddled into him. Everything will be fine. Tomorrow Jiraiya-sensei will come, and we will talk to him about him being godfather. Everything will be fine, and Minato drifted off to sleep. April 30. Was all Jiraiya could say while blinking several. Minato only gave him a smile and said, yeah, Kushina, and I liked it. I think this story is wonderful. Really? Really? Every chapter reads like one of all the stories of the adventures you used to tell me when I was a genin. It's almost autobiographical. Explained the blonde with a soft smile while he reminisced about the past. Yeah, that's all well and good, but it didn't even sell. Said a dejected Jiraiya before his trademark perverted grin appeared on his face. I think I'll include some spicy moments to boost interest for my next one. Minato paid no mind to his sensei pervertedness and said softly, the main character in here, I thought his determination was pretty awesome. He is actually quite a lot like you, sensei. You think so? Jiraiya scratched the back of his head, suddenly embarrassed by the compliment from his star pupil. So, I was thinking, stated Minato, slightly embarrassed. I really hope my soon-to-be-born child can become an amazing shinobi, just like the main character in your book. So that's why I would like to ask your permission to name my son after him. Jiraiya couldn't speak, he was gobsmacked at the unaccepted request. At that moment, Kushina came out of the kitchen, clearly pregnant, and put a hand on Minato's shoulder. At the same time, the other hand tenderly caressed her belly. I think it is a wonderful name. Kushina gave him a small smile. Jiraiya broke into laughter. I should have known it was your idea. I randomly came up with it while eating ramen. It's hilarious naming your son after Rame. Jiraiya never finished the sentence as he took in the sight of Kushina's hair floating menacingly. Naruto means maelstrom, doesn't it, Jiraiya-sama? Said the Uzumaki in a sweet voice that dared to san and fuck around and find out. Jiraiya gave a nervous laugh. Aye, so would that make me his godfather, then? Are you really sure about this? Kushina nodded while Minato spoke. You are my sensei, you are a ninja that possesses true skill. There is no one else in the whole world I rather choose. Jiraiya could only smile at the words. I just wished Tsunade was in the village so I could share the news with her. Kushina sighed. Do you have any idea where she is? She asked hopefully. The white-haired man shook his head. Tsunade has done a good job covering her tracks, but I'm not putting too much effort into keeping tabs on her location. She lost too much, maybe there'll come a time when we need her here, but unless Blondie over there gives the order, I have to prioritize other matters. Said Jiraiya a little somberly. After that, they ate and chatted amicably until they heard a knock on the door. Minato stood to answer the knock, only to find out it was his predecessor to the title of Hokage. Sandaime-sama. Exclaimed Minato in surprise. Good evening, Minato. I'm sorry to intrude into your home unannounced this late in the day. Still, I have matters to discuss with you and Kushina. Oh, okay, come on in. Minato said a little surprised. Is that you, old monkey? Called Jiraiya. Jiraiya. This is a most opportune moment indeed. That's what, old man. They just made the godfather of the Gaki. Said Jiraiya with a goofy smile that perfectly reflected his happiness at the moment. Hiruzen chuckled and made his way to the table to ask Kushina how her pregnancy was coming along and congratulate Jiraiya before sharing the matters he came to discuss. Minato, Kushina, there is something I must explain to you about giving birth. It happened to Mito-sama, as you know, she was also a Jinchuriki. During her labor, the nine-tailed seal was nearly broken. The pin dropping would have been heard by everyone in the room if. Minato closed his eyes. I knew something was not right. Ever since I told him that Kushina and I were going to be parents, there was something in his face mixed in with the smile he had given me. Minato took an almost imperceptible breath, steeled his nerves, and turned to grab his wife's hand. Everything is going to be fine, Kushina. Said Minato with a smile. I know. Answered the Reteed with a smile of her own. Kushina, I'm sorry, but as a precautionary measure, we have to ask you to deliver the child somewhere away from the village, inside a barrier. You will be protected by the Anbu, and I'll also send my wife, Bawako, to help you deliver your child. The pregnant Uzumaki tightened her grip on her husband. Naruto, our son's name is Naruto. Saying his name aloud diminished her rapidly increasing nerves, if ever so slightly. Hiruzen gave a small but warm smile and nodded. Shortly after, the Sandaime excused himself and was soon followed by Kushina, who claimed she was feeling slightly nauseous. As Kushina made her way to the bedroom, she kept repeating the exact phrase over and over in her mind. Everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to be fine. As she repeated the phrase, a plan began forming in her mind. Everything will be fine, and I don't want to add to Minato's plate with the silly worries of a pregnant wife, but just in case. While Kushina went to lie down, Minato and Jiraiya sat quietly under dreadful silence. After a while, it was the Toad Sage that broke the silence. Everything will be fine, Minato. The Yondaime Hokage let out a huge sigh. I know, it's just could you be there the day of Naruto's birth? It's expected to be October 10. Jiraiya gave him a small smile. Minato, you long since surpassed me as a seal master. Kushina's mother taught you seals in ways I can hardly understand, but if it makes you feel better, I'll see what barriers we can put up for security measures. As for your request, well, you know I have to keep tabs on my spy network. We may not be at war, but we have to keep a lookout for everything. Aiwa won't be a threat for a while, but Kumo and Kiri didn't come out of the war as bad. Minato knew his sensei had a point. He was needed outside for now, but something in his gut screamed to throw logic out of the window and order his sensei to stay. Jiraiya stood up and headed for the door with Minato behind him. Seeing the distress in his student's cerulean eyes, he put a hand on his shoulder and squeezed slightly. Everything will be fine, Minato. I know, sensei, but just in case. I promise I'll stop to meet my godson as soon as possible. I can already imagine all the fun we will have. I can picture very clearly what he will be like the first time we take to Mount Mamboku. I hope that kid doesn't get used to Kushina's cooking because he will be in for a hard time, as you can remember. Teased Jiraiya to lift the somber mood of his star pupil. Minato's skin color turned slightly green at the memory of Shima's exotic cooking. I'll see you soon, Minato. And Jiraiya bid farewell. Minato sat down on one of the couches and stared into space. Worry started to creep up again in Minato's body, and he did the only thing he could think of. He decided to make a plan. I can let my worry show in front of Kushina. I know everything will be fine, but just in case. With that thought, he went to lie down next to his wife. May 1. Kushina woke up late only to find that her husband was long gone. It seems that Minato woke up early and went to work. Though Kushina as she stretched and swept the drowsiness of her mind. Alright, I have to get started and return before Minato returns, so he doesn't suspect anything. I need to visit the Senju clan compound. Koch-An's and I's old things are still there, since I never moved them after she died, and I moved out. Kushina thought as she got ready. After she finished her morning routine, she was about to leave when a thought occurred to her. She closed her eyes and concentrated. A few seconds later, a smile spread across her face. Kakashi, you have 5 seconds to come out, or it will hurt. 5 4 3 2 A small figure with silver hair, a dog mask and a black coat, appeared before her, kneeling. Kushina-sama, said the Anbu member with an underlying tone of amusement. Kushina proceeded to smack the Anbu member in the head. Don't Kushina-sama me, Haddock, and take your mask off when talking to me. Said Kushina with a smirk as Kakashi tentatively removed his mask. I'm going to plan a surprise for Minato when Naruto is born, you can still follow me, but I'll need you to be a good boy and not spoil the fun. Okay. Said Kushina as she ruffled Kakashi's hair. Kushina had loved taking the mickey out of all of Minato's students, but she just went the extra mile with Kakashi. Someone had to remember that even though he was already a jonin, he was still young and shouldn't be so uptight and serious all the time. He made no attempt at avoiding this now, he long had learned his lesson about stopping Kushina, but he never could suppress the tick in his right eye. Kakashi just sighed and nodded. He figured that if his sensei had a problem with it, Kushina would manage to protect him. As Kushina made his way to the now uninhabited Senju compound, she started to think back to her childhood growing up there. Ever since the marriage between Mito Uzumaki and Hashirama Senju, every Uzumaki that entered the Konoha was welcomed with open arms into the compound. The compound had a certain natural beauty that couldn't be matched by any other place in Konoha. The tall and robust trees surrounding the compound made you feel in touch with nature, and the air was the purest she had felt the pleasure of breathing in. It wasn't Yuzushio, but it was beautiful and was the most at home she ever felt in Konoha before she and Minato moved in together. Kushina entered the compound and made her way toward her old house. It was a house like any other, except instead of only having the Senju clan crest in the door, it also had the Uzumaki clan crest in the original sky blue. She smiled fondly at the old symbol. For some reason, the clan at one point had decided to change the symbol's color to a red that matched the most recognizable physical trait in an Uzumaki. Yet, she could still remember that you could see the original symbol plastered in some places in Yuzushio. Kushina's mood soon turned sour as she remembered her home country. She was very aware that most of the younger generation didn't know about the deep ties between Konoha and Yuzu. Ever since the fall of Uzushiogakure, most of the knowledge of the once great clan seemed to have died with the village. She didn't fault Konoha for not aiding Yuzu, at least not now. She would admit that, at some point, she was resentful of this village for not assisting them. But as she matured, she understood that everything happened far too quickly for Konoha to send help. According to her mother, the concentrated attack from Kumo and Kiri was unexpected. She may understand this now, but it still stung. However, what she couldn't forgive was how the Sandaime had allowed their sacrifice and friendship to be forgotten. It made her blood boil. Thankfully now that Minato was Hokage, it will all be fixed shortly. She had put her foot down that until Minato agreed to change the curriculum in the academy, he would be sleeping on the couch. Minato never had agreed to anything faster in his life. She had spent much of her time planning what should be taught about her clan before her pregnancy. She fondly remembers how she had used Kakashi as a test subject to cram him with every piece of information that would be taught in the academy. Kakashi had kept his expressionless face all throughout her lessons. To anyone else, it would seem like Kakashi just went along as a favor to his sensei, but she knew better. The boy had enjoyed learning about the clan. He is just like Minato in that sense, both would never pass a chance to learn something new. Mused Kushina as she opened the door. Kushina took a deep breath as she entered the house, she took in the sight of the dusty living room where she used to eat with her mother, Akane Uzumaki. She shook her head after a few seconds. There is a reason I didn't come when planning what to teach about the clan, too many memories. She took in a deep breath. I'll better do this quickly for my sake. Kushina went towards the room where her mother kept several scrolls about the clan's history, Kenjutsu, Ninjutsu and Taijutsu. Her mother had brought all of these scrolls from Yuzu for the sole purpose of teaching her. In her words, I won't let any Uzumaki smear the history of the great Uzumaki clan on why watch, much less my own daughter. And that is why Kushina was drilled into the ground with studies since a young age. At that moment, Kushina had loathed her studies, but now she could look back and appreciate the memories fondly. I understand, Mom. Naruto will also grow to represent the clan and make us proud. Said Kushina under her breath. Slowly, without her noticing, her clan pride had grown. Though it didn't quite reach the hubris the Uchiha and Hika displayed, she still was incredibly proud of her clan's history. She would be damned if Naruto wasn't proud of being an Uzumaki. Kushina bit her thumb, spread some blood on the doorknob, and opened the door. Kushina then undid the additional security seals her mother had put in place. After taking care of the security measures, she selected every scroll she had deemed important enough for Naruto to have. She divided them by Kenjutsu, Ninjutsu, Taijutsu, and clan history. She ordered them according to their rank or, in the case of the clan's history, chronologically. She then took 4 larger scroll seals and proceeded to modify the matrix. She took a while to plan how to modify the storage seals, but she got an idea after brainstorming. It shouldn't be that hard, just a bit tricky and long. I guess no one really has a reason to develop such a seal yet and record the knowledge. Kushina started to work with some ink and brush she had brought along with her. After brainstorming how to go about this, she modified the sealing matrix and added some kanji to the scroll. What she wanted to create was essentially a layered progressional storage seal. The 4 scrolls were going to be stored in a larger sealing scroll. Inside the bigger scroll, 4 kanji would appear. History, Kenjutsu, Taijutsu and Ninjutsu. Once you entered the chakra into one of the kanji, the seal would release the current lowest ranking scroll of the chosen subject. In the bigger scroll, questions would appear to test your knowledge on the scroll you took out. It took Kushina a couple of hours, but she had figured it out and now she only had to add the question to the larger scroll. She would be doing this during the remaining months of her pregnancy. She put the storage seal on her bag, stood up, and stretched. Kenjutsu sure is a wonderful thing. She said to herself. Kushina decided to go home before it was too late, but she passed by her old bedroom door before she left. She stared at the door for a moment before letting out a sigh and opening the door. She explored her old room for a while before finding a box filled with small red books. She smiled softly, grabbed one of the books, and opened it. My old journals. I stopped writing years ago, but maybe I should store them in another scroll for Naruto. She quickly followed with her line of thought and sealed her journals into another scroll. After that, she made her way home. Meanwhile, Minato was at one of his safe houses, reviewing several of his notes. At the beginning of their relationship, he and Kushina had bonded a little over their writing hobby. Kushina initially had only kept a journal to cope with her loneliness due to being an outsider. She stopped writing a couple of months after they began their relationship. Minato, on the hand, never stopped writing. He had too many thoughts and one day not to write them and keep them stored for a later date. Today was precisely that date. Minato was looking at all the journals he had written through his years. The Rasengan and its multiple steps, as well as theories on combining with chakra nature, Kenjutsu, tactics, the Hiraishin with the improvements he had made and derived jutsu he created, daily thoughts, and his own fighting style. Minato's fighting style had 3 different variations. The first was based on a relatively simple style, although it could be pretty risky. If the user didn't have the speed and reflexes to execute the style properly, the enemy could exploit the small openings in the user's guards. The second variation focused on quick slashes, stabs, and counters with a kunai. This style had a particularity that was almost exclusive to Minato. Most shinobi essentially threw ninjutsu out the window the moment they grabbed a kunai. Minato wasn't like most ninjas. He wasn't Konoha no Kairoi Senkin for nothing. His uncommon talent for one-handed hand signs and Rasengan allowed him to incorporate ninjutsu while fighting in close-range combat seamlessly. The third variation was created when he implemented the Hiraishin into the second variation. The combination proved to have become highly lethal indeed. Minato collected all of his notes and organized them in terms of difficulty. Minato debated including his notes of the Nidame's Hiraishin and his improvements along with his other notes. He had been torn between passing his knowledge to Naruto and letting him be his own shinobi. After deliberating for a while, he concluded that he wanted Naruto to have all the tools to surpass him, but he wouldn't outright hand things to him. He had been thinking of a seal that would grant Naruto gradual access to his notes, the Hiraishin, of course, being the grand prize. Unknowingly Minato created the exact same seal that Kushina had created down to the last brush, with the only exception that Minato didn't have anything regarding his family history. Minato inspected the seal and grinned. I think I call this seal the sequential learning progress tracking seal. Kenjutsu sure is a wonderful thing. October 3. Minato sat in his office with a beautiful view of Konoha behind him. At the moment, the blonde Hokage was examining a particular piece of paperwork. Unlike most of his paperwork, which is usually handled by his shadow clones, he wanted to take this one personally. He had been thinking about it, but every time it came to his mind, the worry of somehow offending him came along. He sighed. I'm just bad at these things. I'm horrible at expressing my feelings. I know that I'm not a cold person, quite the opposite, it's just how I'm even going to put it into words. Though Minato as he examined the paper in his hands. Kushina had given him the last push to decide to go for it. He remembered yesterday with a smile. Flashback. Minato was peacefully eating the miso ramen with extra chasu he had picked up on his way home, while Kushina ate her favorite salt ramen. Kushina observed her husband and waited for the perfect moment to strike. Finally, she found the right opportunity. "You know, Minato, I have been thinking something lately." Her husband only nodded, signaling to continue. Before speaking, her eyes were twinkling with mischief. "I think Naruto should have a brother," she said with the straightest face she could muster. Minato started to choke on his ramen for a few seconds until she took pity on him and passed him a glass of water. She remained dead serious and looked him straight in the eyes, causing him to avert his gaze. "Already? I mean, Naruto has even been born, shouldn't we wait, I don't know, a little?" said Minato with panic in his voice. "Are you saying you don't want to make more babies with me, Namikaze?" Kushina lifted an eyebrow and her tone sounded more like a threat than a question. Minato turned, paled, and started to stutter. "IIK Kushina TT, that wasn't what IIM meant." Kushina couldn't hold it anymore and burst out laughing. The blonde just stared at his wife for a couple of seconds before letting out a relieved sigh. "Don't joke like that." Minato pouted. "Well, I wasn't joking, at least not entirely." Now the yellow flash was outright confused. Kushina decided to stop being cryptic and took a sheet of paper and passed it to her husband. Minato grabbed a paper and analyzed it before a smile appeared on his face. Kushina, seeing Minato's smile, decided to voice her thoughts. "I know you have been thinking it for a while, and knowing you, you would have taken ages to do it." Minato gave her a sheepish smile and rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Minato smiled again and looked at the paper that read adoption form for Hada Kakashi. After a couple of seconds, Minato frowned. "I'm worried I might offend him. You know what he thinks of his father." Kushina gave him a tender smile. "Minato, you know you want to give it to him. I'm sure Kakashi won't be offended. If he weren't so cold, he would be fanboying over you. You are the person he admires the most and has been there for him since he was what? 8. Minato nodded in response and thought about when he should do it. "Just don't take too long, Minato." Flashback ends. Minato was still reminiscing when he seldom heard a knock on the door and he absent-mindedly answered to come in. He was still looking at the form in his hands until he heard Kakashi's voice. Minato jumped at the voice and fumbled with the paper. The paper fell out of his hands right beside Kakashi's feet. The young Anbu moved to grab the form that, thankfully, it landed face down and Minato had to prove why it was claimed that he had unparalleled speed. After returning to his seat in less than the blink of an eye, he spoke rather nervously while rubbing the back of his head. "Sorry Kakashi, it's classified information, yes, very classified." Kakashi blinked behind his mask at his sensei's odd behavior and shrugged it off as nervousness because of his son. He stood there waiting for his sensei to speak. After all, he had called him but got confused after he didn't talk. Was there something you needed, Hokage-sama? Minato blinked and the realization hit him that he was the one that had called Kakashi. Minato coughed into his fist. "Right, Kakashi, as I have told you already, please address me as you always have. No need to be so formal with me. I called you in here to thank you for protecting Kushina." But began Kakashi. "The Anbu directly under the Sandaime will take over for now. Then I'll be returning to my duties in Anbu. There is no need to be so hasty. Take a week or two off before you return to your duties," said Minato with a smile. Kakashi nodded, bowed, and exited the office, but Minato remembered something before he left. "Kakashi, wait." Minato turned his gaze to look down at the adoption form and he felt his mouth go dry and couldn't get the words out. "Hi. Ah, never mind. I'll tell you later." Kakashi just nodded again and exited the office. Minato let out a sigh of frustration at not being able to talk with Kakashi about the adoption. He put the form back in his pocket and looked at the clock. "Right, I should go and hide Naruto's scroll, and now I know just the place to hide it," he thought while smirking. Kushina let out a tired sigh. "Ah, walking all the way here has been a total pain in the ass with this belly," she thought as she went to where she had chosen to hide Naruto's scroll. Kushina entered a beautiful clearing with a small cascade. She smiled as she remembered when she and Minato would come here in their teenage years. Kushina would tell her mom that she and Minato would go out to train and they come in here and just hang out. This was their place. In the later years of their relationship, they had even been a little cabin hidden away from everything when they wanted a little more privacy to practice their cardiovascular endurance. They had taken precautionary methods so no one but them could see their little cabin. They had put on a seal that worked as a powerful and constant Jinjutsu barrier that wouldn't affect either of them, thanks to the blood seals they had put in place. Kushina entered the little cabin and took out the scroll she had prepared for her yet-to-be-born Naruto. She looked around the small cabin, it wasn't anything fancy. Just a bed with a nightstand beside it and a closet. She smiled when she spotted a picture on the nightstand. It was a picture of both of them smiling together at a festival. She was so lost in the memories that she almost missed the bright yellow flash that appeared in front of her. After a second, Kushina went wide-eyed as she stared at her husband's equally wide cerulean eyes. Minato. Hey Kushina. What are you doing here? They both said at the same time. A couple of seconds of silence followed, in which neither could speak. Kushina recovered first and used her usual humor to divert attention from her. You weren't planning on bringing any girls here, right Namikaze? Said Kushina with narrowed eyes. To her happiness, she achieved what she aimed for and made Minato stutter due to the surprise. What? And no, of course not. Kushina's eyes remained narrowed, trying to keep the conversation off her. So, then what are you doing here? She asked with a fake tone of suspicion. Wait, what are you doing here? Asked the blonde back. Kushina had been expecting it, so she doubled her efforts. Don't play with me, Namikaze, and what's that scroll on your hand? Minato blinked a couple of times when he realized he had Naruto's scroll in his left hand. Minato quickly hid behind his back. Nothing. Just a scroll I took with me by accident from the office. Said Minato in a hurry. Now Kushina was suspicious. And why do you have a scroll with you? Said Minato after a few seconds of silence. Kushina cursed under her breath. It's just something for Naruto, a gift I wanted to hide here. Minato blinked a couple of times before letting out a laugh. You too? Said Minato before continued laughing. Kushina waited for her to notice she wasn't laughing and pointed at the scroll in her husband's hands. So, you lied to me. Minato instantly gulped and went pale. It's not like that. Really? To her surprise, Minato went from uncomfortable to slightly sad and looked toward the ground. It's just something I did for him. I know everything is going to be fine. But you did just in case. Minato looked up to see the sad smile she had. Neither of them moved in a long silence until Minato got closer and enveloped her in a tender hug. I'm scared. She said with a terrible voice that Minato felt a lump in his throat. Minato didn't have any words to reassure her. There were no words that would calm down a mother who feared for the well-being of her child. That and Minato was also scared shitless himself. He opted just to embrace her with his tall frame and long arms and transmit the message that he wanted to put into words. I won't let anyone harm a single of Naruto's hair. Kushina lost track of how many minutes she spent in Minato's arms. She could have stayed like this until she had to give birth for all she cared about. After the long hug, neither spoke as they took their scrolls and placed them in the nightstand cabinet. They both sat on the bed in silence before Kushina said. So, did you talk to Kakashi? She got her answer when she felt Minato tense and sighed in frustration. She was about to give her a piece of her mind when her husband spoke. Actually, I was thinking of putting the form in here and returning to grab it after Naruto's birthday. Since everything will be fine, we can return to get the form and talk to Kakashi together. He finished with a smile. Kushina knew it was a lie, but had to give him his due credit. It was the smoothest lie he had ever told, so she just nodded with a smile. Meanwhile, Minato was mentally patting himself on the back. He stood up to open the cabinet and placed the adoption form next to the scroll. After that, hand in hand, both made their way out of their small cabin in silence. October 10th. Jiraiya threw himself into the bed of an inn and let out a tired sigh. Why do I wear those things? My feet are killing me. Maybe I should look for a bar and some cuties to spend the night though. Jiraiya with a perverted grin, but it soon died down. I need to be in good condition tomorrow when I meet Naruto. It's going to be like a 6-hour journey to Konoha. And with a smile, Jiraiya drifted off into a peaceful sleep. Kakashi was coming back from the cemetery after sharing the news with his deceased teammates. He couldn't put into any words other than he was feeling lighter. His nightmares about Rin were happening less frequently and he thought he had more energy to train. I guess I'm doing better. His thoughts drifted again to Naruto. He couldn't remember the last time he had been so excited for something. No one could tell due to his mask, but Kakashi had a soft and small smile as he walked the streets of Konoha. It hurts Databane. Kushina's screams filled the room she was giving birth. Minato was supposed to keep Kushina's seal stable while she gave birth, but her screams of pain dug deep holes into his concentration, filled with worry for his wife. I've never seen Kushina in so much pain. Is she alright? Asked Minato with concern in his words. She is doing fine, just concentrate on keeping the Kyuubi inside of her and she will get the baby out. Explained Bawako, the wife of Hiruzen Sarutobi. Minto nodded and was about to regain focus when Kushina uttered another thundering scream of pain. Are you sure she is? Minato never finished his question. You're the Yondaime Hokage. Act as such. She can handle the pain. Said Bawako in a harsh tone. Minato gulped and refocused on Kushina's seal. The struggle continued for a few minutes, Minato trying to keep the Kyuubi in his seal and Kushina trying to get Naruto out of her. Finally, everyone present heard the indistinguishable cry of a newborn baby. Minato stared at Naruto in Bawako's arms. He's born. Minato muttered to himself as he felt his eyes grow damp. Minato closed his eyes and let out a massive sigh of relief that had been in him for the last several months. He's born, and everything is fine. Minato wanted to burst out in tears of joy, but when he opened his eyes, he saw Bawako coming his way carrying Naruto. He tried to take Naruto from her to hold him and tell him how much he loved him. He had loved him ever since Kushina told him she was pregnant, but Bawako scolded him, saying Kushina had the right to hold him first. Minato could only pout. Kushina was still panting from the effort when she saw Bawako approaching with Naruto in her arms. "Naruto. I finally get to see you. You'll have more time in a couple of minutes. I'm going to lay him down, okay?" Kushina only nodded, feeling her words fail her due to her emotion. "Kushina, how are you feeling?" asked Minato cheerfully. "Happy. So happy," said Kushina in a weak voice as tears rolled down her face. Minato could only look affectionately into her violet eyes and say the first thing that came to mind. "Thank you." They simply stared into each other's eyes, sharing the deep happiness and relief each felt. "Okay, now I only have to completely seal the Kyuubi," said Minato with determination. As he was about to begin, two screams of pain and surprise echoed through the room. Minato instantly turned to see Bawako and her aide crumble lifelessly into the ground, but he saw him. A cloaked and masked figure holding his son. "Yondaime Hokage, step away from the Jinchuriki. Otherwise, this child will have only lived 1 minute," said the masked man in a cold tone. It all went to shit after that. Minato had to save Naruto from blowing by teleporting into one of his safe houses. After making sure that Naruto was unharmed, he went looking for Kushina. He was just in time to rescue her from being crushed by Kyuubi. He knew he had only bought her a few more minutes of life. Even in Uzumaki wouldn't survive for long after having a Bijk extracted. It was a testament to the Uzumaki's life force she hadn't died right after the extraction. "Is he safe?" asked a weak Kushina. Minato could afford to be clouded by emotions at this point. "Yeah, he is fine. He is in a safe place for now." Kushina nodded. "Minato, that man, he is heading towards the village. He wants to destroy it with the Kyuubi." If possible, Minato's mood turned even more somber than before. Minato quickly teleported to the safe house where he had left Naruto in. He arrived and laid a dying Kushina next to his newborn child. "Just stay with Naruto, Kushina." Kushina tried her hardest to pull herself closer to Naruto so he could embrace him in her last minutes of life. Seeing her dying wife lay peacefully beside Naruto filled his eyes with tears. Still, they were quickly replaced by the look that would send shinobi during the last war. He quickly gathered his vest, kunai, and cloak. He flashed into one of the backs towards the village. Minato landed on top of his own head in the Hokage monument and stared down the Kyuubi, thinking about how best to approach the situation. He was coming up with a plan when the Kyuubi turned to face him. "So, you notice me already." The Kyuubi immediately started charging a Bijkdama to aim it right where he stood. "You won't get your way here," screamed Minato, performing 4 hand signs as the massive pure chakra flew toward him. Hurration. Mrai. Massive kanji appeared before the Kyuubi's attack as it swallowed the Bijkdama. A couple of seconds later, an explosion was heard in the distance. Minato was about to do the hand sign to summon Gamabunta when he felt a presence behind him. He quickly turned to slash with his kunai but was surprised when he saw his arm go through the head of the masked man until it reached at his hand and he held it in a vice grip. Minato's world began to spin as he felt himself being sucked into a spiral. Thinking quickly, he flashed to a kunai on the outskirts of the village. Minato landed harshly on the ground as he analyzed what had just happened. "My attack missed, but he materialized and instantly tried to drag me in. What is that jutsu?" As he finished that thought, a spiral formed as the masked man materialized from nothing. As Minato stared into a single hole on the right side of the mask, he saw a bright red eye with 3 tomo. "I won't let you get away," announced the masked man. Minato stood up as he kept analyzing his mysterious opponent. He can use a teleportation jutsu that rivals the Hurration. He managed to outmaneuver the Anbu assigned by the Sandaime and slip through a top secret barrier without anyone noticing. He also knew that Kushina's seal would weaken during childbirth and managed to extract and control the Kyuubi with his Sharingan. Furthermore, he successfully infiltrated Konoha without firing off the security barrier. "I know of only one shinobi capable of this. Are you Uchiha Madara? But that's not really possible. He died a long time ago." "I wonder about that," said the figure as he lowered the hood of his cloak. "It doesn't really matter who you are in the end. But why are you targeting Konoha? You could say I did on a whim, or that I planned it, or that it is for war, or that is for peace," said the man cryptically as chains fell from the sleeves of his cloak. "This man is even more dangerous than Kyuubi. I must deal with him right here before I can return to the village and help with Kyuubi. I'll have to trust that Sandaime can protect the village while I care for him." Though Minato as he sized up his enemy. "You have no hope left, Yondaime," As soon as the man finished the sentence, both rushed towards each other. Minato tried to slash at the man again, not hoping to damage him, but to figure out more about his technique. As he had suspected, he went through his opponent's body as if it was just an illusion, right into the chains he had attached to himself. Minato quickly flashed toward a kunai a few meters away. I thought my physical attacks did not affect him, but he has to materialize to attack me. Namely, I can aim for him when we both try to strike, but there lies the risk. Considering how much time has passed since he summoned the Kyuubi into the village, it doesn't have much time. He wants to finish these as soon as possible, just like me. However, lands their next attack an instant quicker than the other will emerge victorious. Minato prepared to charge again. As both ran towards each other at blinding speeds, Minato threw his kunai towards the man's head, and just as he had hoped, it phased right through him. The milliseconds grew long as they approached each other, and Minato formed the biggest Rasengan he could with the available time. It seemed that Minato would be one picosecond too slow as the mysterious man's hand would reach him first when he suddenly flashed to the kunai from earlier and slammed the Rasengan onto the man's back. That was my Hiraishin I know Dan. Flying Thunder God second step. You got me. I must say you are as fast as your nickname. I should have never let my gore just before he finished that sentence. Minato flashed to the mark he had put on him and slammed a palm into his chest, with multiple kanji spreading as a result. But this, the Kyuubi no longer belongs to you, said Minato as he put his palm into the masked man's chest. Kyaku Fukin. Contract seal. After negating the control the man had over the Kyuubi, Minato moved to slash the man's throat, but the man disappeared and appeared a few meters away. I must hand it to you. You wounded and managed to break my control over the Kyuubi. However, the Kyuubi will eventually be mine. Sooner or later, I will rule this world, and there are many ways to go about it. And with the man disappeared into a spiraling vortex. That man is a threat to this world. Minato could feel his mark still on the man, but he had more important matters at the moment and made his way to the village. He appeared as the Kyuubi was charging another Bijidama. Minato quickly summoned Gamabunta to immobilize it. Minato's thoughts returned to the masked man, and he knew what he had to do. He started molding chakra, and suddenly he and the Kyuubi disappeared, and a bright explosion was seen in the distance by the Sandaime. The panting Minato landed with an agonizing Kushina and Naruto. I must put a barrier up immediately, he told his wife while panting. But my chakra is almost. I can still do it, Minato, said Kushina, and without waiting for an answer, golden chakra chains sprouted from her back that quickly tied the Kyuubi. Due to all the noise, Naruto woke up. Did I wake you up, Naruto? I'm sorry, asked Kushina with a tired smile. She turned to her husband. Minato, I will draw the Kyuubi with me to my death. We could delay the revival of the Kyuubi. I can save everyone with what little chakra I have left. She closed her eyes, not wanting her husband to see the sadness in her eyes. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Minato's heart was broken, but everything wasn't fine in the end. He finally let his emotions slip after everything that he went through today. Kushina, it's because of you I gained the strength to become Hokage. You made me the man that I'm today, and you made me Naruto's father, and I couldn't pro. Minato, don't give me that look. Still giving him that closed-eye smile. I'm happy that you loved me, and today is Naruto's birthday. The only regret is that I won't be alive to see Naruto grow up. Minato took a deep breath. Kushina, there is no need for that. Tears slipped from his eyes. Preserve as much chakra as you can and mold it in 2 different parts for a reunion with Naruto. Kushina's head snapped up. I'll seal all of your remaining chakra inside Naruto. 1/2 will be part of the Haki Fukin. 8 trigram seal, the other will be part of the Shinzui Fukin. Essence seal. But Minato. Kushina, let me finish. I will only seal half of the Kyuubi in me. I'll have to use the Shiki Fukin. Reap Death Seal, to split the Kyuubi's chakra. The other part I'll seal it inside Naruto. Kushina was about to protest, but Minato didn't let him. I learned 2 things today. First, the masked man who attacked today is a harbinger of disaster, and second, the one who will stop him is this child. I believe Naruto will open the future as Jinchuriki. I don't know why, but I'm convinced of this. Minato started to make one of the last sets of hand signs he would ever perform. When the Shinigami himself appeared floating behind Minato. Kushina, let's put our faith in him. He is our son, after all. I'll seal part of your chakra in the Haki Fukin. 8 trigram seal, and the rest I will seal in the Shinzui Fukin. Essence seal. You will be able to meet him twice. Once when he attempts to control the Kyuubi's chakra and another when you feel he needs you the most. You have no idea, you don't even know the burden you are putting him under. Being a Jinchuriki is a curse. I had it easy compared to others. I found you and a few friends, and only very few people know my status. And also, why use the Shiki Fukin? Reap Death Seal. So that we can meet an older Naruto briefly when you could be there for him. You don't need to die. Screamed the panting, furious, and slowly fading Kushina. After a few deep gasps of breath, she continued. I want you to stay by Naruto as he grows up and protect him. You're dying for what? To protect the balance of Bij between the nations. To give a chance to meet him. For the village's sake. Why must Naruto be sacrificed? Streams of tears flowed freely from her eyes. Minato's expression was a mix between sadness and determination. To forsake one's village is the same as forsaking one's child. That is what my title of Hokage means. Your own homeland was destroyed, so you, of all people, should know why I'm doing it. As his mother should know, I hate doing it. And you are right. I don't know what being a Jinchuriki is like, but I know you do. That's why you need to be there for him, he will need you more than he needs me. Have faith in him, Kushina, he is your son, after all. Minato gave her a smile. I know he will be able to shoulder his burden even better than you did. Kushina only gave a nod in response as tears kept falling. A couple of seconds later, the spectral hand of the Shinigami went through Minato's belly, went after the Kyuubi, ripped a part of the Kyuubi's chakra, and dragged it to seal it into Minato. The Kyuubi's size was cut in half, and its chains loosened unbeckoning to the couple. At that moment, Minato got distracted by seeing Kushina fall to the ground coughing. The Kyuubi used that opportunity to try to kill the baby he would be sealed into by crushing it with his claw. Minato and Kushina turned in time to stop the deadly claw. Minato performed the Hakifukin and sealed the Kyuubi in Naruto before preparing to perform Kyokufukin. Kushina, I will seal the remaining of your chakra in Naruto now. You won't be able to talk to him for a while, so. Kushina nodded. Naruto, we don't have so much time. I just want you to know that we love you so much that it breaks our hearts to leave you. I'm sorry we won't be there every day. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry we won't be able to play with you, that I won't be there to spoil and scold you at the same time. I'm sorry I won't be able to see you smile. Kushina was now sobbing, and Minato was openly crying. Naruto, I'm sorry. I didn't want to put such a heavy burden on your shoulders. I have faith you can handle it, be strong, Naruto. Know that we will always love you. A few seconds later, the barrier dropped, and the third Hokage ran to their aid. Sandaime, I want people to know that Naruto is a hero, said his successor before he died. October 11th. Jiraiya woke from a restful sleep and quickly showered to head to Konoha. He was giddy at the prospect of meeting his grandson. I wonder who the Gaki resembles. If he turns out to be anything like Minato, he will help a ton in my research. Though with a perverted giggle as he made his way toward Konoha. Jiraiya's excitement soon became dread as his journeys advanced. The land surrounding Konoha showed signs of destruction, and Jiraiya quickened his pace. No, no, no. Were the only thoughts Jiraiya could muster as he was filled with dread and panic. Jiraiya arrived at the gates only to see the recent destruction that had hit the village. He soon spotted a Chunin and approached. Where is Minato? Jiraiya screamed at the Chunin as he shook him violently. Hokage-sama is the Chunin never finished the sentence as he decided to go to the Hokage's office. Jiraiya's panic meter was now in overdrive. He entered the building without caring who shouted or tried to stop him. He blurted through the door, hoping, no, praying to find his prized pupil behind the desk and not his old sensei. He was surprised to find neither of them present. His surprise was quickly replaced by confusion. He was about to leap out of the window to move to continue his search when he heard a voice. A voice that filled him with dread. The voice of one, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Jiraiya, said the man with exhaustion and sadness in his voice. The Sannin slowly turned to see his sensei in his full shinobi armor. He didn't say a word, or rather, he couldn't. Hiruzen closed the door and made some hand signs, and the kanji for silence appeared at the door. Take a seat, Jiraiya. The old Hokage said, pointing to a sofa in the corner of the room. The Toad Sage did, and both sat in a bone-chilling silence. Where is Minato? The Sannin finally asked the question he was so afraid of. Hiruzen kept silent for a minute until he finally let out a depressed sigh, and Jiraiya knew he would never see his students again. I don't know exactly what happened. We are still trying to figure it out, but the Kyuubi broke from the seal and appeared in the middle of the village. Jiraiya sat in silence for a long time. How? I don't know. Kushina was giving birth away from the village. We should have been able to see it coming. Kushina? Asked hopefully the Sannin. Hiruzen just shook his head, answering his student's question. Jiraiya felt empty and numb. Never, even during the wars or when he lost students, had he felt so empty. What he had with Minato was special, beyond the common bond between master and student. He knew Jiraiya wasn't a fatherly figure, but he thought Minato was as good as his nephew. Suddenly the Sandaime got serious and visibly angry. I suspect some sort of foul play present in this disaster. Foul play? After everything was solved, I went to where Kushina was giving birth. I found Bawako and her assistant dead and all the Anbu I had dispatched, but the place showed no signs of destruction. Someone assassinated them. I don't know how or why, but a third party was involved. Jiraiya's chakra spiked, and he started to leak killing intent. Danzo. No, I don't believe Danzo would have someone that capable in his ranks. Neither would he attempt something so dangerous that could have ended with the destruction of the village. They sat in silence for a while. Hiruzen let Jiraiya process everything before overwhelming him with more information. After a few moments, Hiruzen spoke again. Naruto is alive. Jiraiya's head snapped up in attention. He had forgotten entirely about his godson. And Minato sealed the Kyuubi in him. Jiraiya was shocked. A part of him, the one with a very dark sense of humor, almost chuckled. His student was far too noble and loved the village too much. He wouldn't seal the beast in any other person if he weren't willing to do sacrifices himself. Do you want me to check the seal? Asked Jiraiya. Hiruzen frowned and raised a questioning eyebrow, but either way, he nodded in acceptance. Jiraiya followed Hiruzen to the hospital to a private room heavily guarded by Anbu. When Jiraiya saw his godson, his breath hitched. He had previously hoped that Naruto resembled Minato, but now, seeing that he clearly reached him, it hurt. It hurt a lot. Jiraiya quickly went through the process of checking the seal. On another occasion, Jiraiya would have whistled and boasted about the sealing prowess of his student, but now he felt far too empty to even acknowledge, beyond saying that the seal was stable. After the examination, Jiraiya and Hiruzen stood in silence, while the Sannin kept trying to look anywhere but at the cradle, where a sleeping Naruto lay. Hiruzen kept taking glances to gauge what Jiraiya was thinking. So, Jiraiya, what are you going to do now? Was everything the sage could say. The old sage just sighed. Jiraiya, Minato and Kushina named you his godfather, did they not? You do know what that means. Finished Hiruzen harshly. Jiraiya's eyes widened in realization. I can't take care of him, old man. Said Jiraiya a little too loud. Before catching himself, I can't raise a kid. I mean, look at me. What sort of person he would grow up to be. Can you imagine how that girl Tsunade took with her is doing? Besides, I have to take care of my spy network, life on the move won't be good. Jiraiya's voice slowed. Hiruzen was tempted to express his disappointment, but he understood he was grieving. Hiruzen turned to see the sleeping baby. We can keep his status as a Jinchuriki a secret and try to give him the normal life of an orphan. Making his status public would only put him in danger and make him the center of all the grief and anger. He thought depressively. 7 days later, all shinobi who were healthy enough to stand, except for one of the Sannin, could be found at the cemetery, paying their respects to the late Namikaze Minato and all the victims of the tragedy. Among all of the shinobi, no one fell more desolated and emptier than had Kakashi. Kakashi's life had been marked by loss since he was young, but this one stung the most. It stung the most because it was the one that left him completely alone. When he finally was turning a new page, someone came and shut the book, forcing him to start from the beginning and relive the worst parts. He knew there was someone, his sensei's son. He tried, he really did. But when he went to meet the baby and tried to hold him, it burned. It burned with all the pain and loss of his young life. No. No, I can be there for him. Not now, but eventually, in a couple of years. I screwed him over. This was Kakashi's first thought when Hiruzen told him about his thoughts on how Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki leaked. Kakashi had been livid when the Hokage said that he believed that Danzo had revealed Naruto's status to get back at them for taking Tenzo from Root. The old Scarhead had been salivating at the opportunity of sinking his extremist beliefs into Naruto ever since Hiruzen announced to the counselors that the Yondaime had sealed the Kyuubi in him. Danzo had constantly demanded that Naruto be given to him so he could train him, and the Hokage always refused him. Kakashi had shuddered at the thought of the bright, smiling kid he shadowed, occasionally becoming an emotionless weapon for Danzo to point at whoever he pleased. His latest adventure with Tenzo had caused Danzo's spitefulness to go over the edge, but being the shrewd operator that he is, there was no way to track this debacle back to him. The copy ninja had been putting off meeting Naruto as much as he could. He didn't want to be attached to anyone anymore, but just seeing his spiky golden hair and cheerful smile threw Kakashi back to the past. As he had expected, the kid reminded him about Kushina and Minato, but being reminded of Obito really threw him for a loop. He couldn't quite place it, but something made Naruto a constant reminder of his late teammate. He even gifted him a pair of green goggles as his inside joke. He had left them at his doorstep on his 4th birthday, and to his delight, he had never seen him without them. He had decided to meet him after he returned from his latest mission. He had been away from the village for 2 weeks, only to return and hear people talking about the Kyuubi kid. He had rushed to meet the Hokage. When he met with him, he had been furiously writing a law preventing anyone from talking about it unless they wanted to be executed. Now Kakashi couldn't even look at Naruto without feeling guilty, aside from the other painful reminders he brought. He was returning to Anbu headquarters, the sun had already set and the pure white snow covered most of the streets. Then, he saw a small, shaking figure walking alone in Konoha's desolate and freezing streets, trying to tie a scarf as red as his mother's hair. Kakashi mentally sighed, silently approached the blonde kid and knelt before grabbing each end of the scarf and tying it properly. For as loud and bright as Naruto was, he was also equally curious. So, seeing a man in a mask approach him genuinely perplexed and intrigued him. It took him a moment to realize that said man was tying up his scarf and he tried his hardest to memorize how he was doing it. When he finished, the Anbu member just silently stepped back. "What is your name?" asked a curious Naruto as he approached the masked man. Kakashi stood in silence for a while before answering. "Inu." "Thank you, Inu," Naruto said with his full-out grin. Kakashi nodded but was lost in the clear blue eyes that he vividly remembered his sensei had. He was so distracted he didn't notice when Naruto got close enough to hug his leg. It took him a moment to realize that Naruto was hugging him. As soon as he realized, the same feeling he had when he tried to carry Naruto when he was born returned. Yep, it still burned. It still hurt. He wasn't ready for this and doubted he would ever be. Kakashi gently removed Naruto from him before nodding and vanishing in a shunshin. Naruto was broadly smiling as he walked home. That little gesture of someone helping him made his day. He didn't understand much at this age, but he understood that people didn't like him for whatever reason. He understood that he wasn't like the kids with parents to feed and hug them. Still, he didn't let those thoughts dampen his mood. Someone had actually helped him. Him, of all people. The only other person who has ever been remotely kind to him was the old man he shared fish in the forest once. This was the best day ever. Hinata was running out of the funeral house. She didn't know why she felt it was her fault, but it felt like she had caused his cousin much pain. She couldn't stand seeing him trying to suppress his tears. "It's all my fault," thought Hinata as she felt the beginning of tears forming in her pale lavender eyes. She was the heiress and shouldn't be seen crying, but she couldn't keep them away anymore. So, when everybody was grieving, she ran away. She ran until no one was in sight, and when she couldn't run anymore, she collapsed in the middle of the street under a lamplight and started sobbing profoundly. She sobbed for a while until she heard a voice. "What are you doing?" asked the voice loudly. She was used to getting scolded by her father, but he would never raise his voice. She would have thought it felt horrible, but this voice was unique. It was loud and bright with no hint of disappointment or harshness. She raised to look at the owner of the voice only to see a blonde kid about her age with a cream and orange jacket and a red scarf walking towards her. "What are you doing here?" asked the voice more softly. "If you keep crying, how I'm supposed to find out?" he questioned her with a hint of humor. Hinata couldn't get the words out. The blonde just smiled softly at her. "Where is your house?" he asked as he continued to smile at her. Hinata could only shake her head in response, her sadness and shyness acting up. "Oh well, come on. We will find it, let's go." As soon as he said that, he took her hand and guided her through the streets. She didn't know when or why, but she had stopped crying. Now she was only focusing on the hand of the blonde guiding her. She was entranced by how warm his hand felt despite the harsh winter Konoha was experiencing. They walked around for a while as she found comfort in the warmness he exuded under the freezing weather. Eventually, she could point him in directions until they arrived at the Haika compound. The smiling blonde stood in amazement at the huge structure. "Wow. You live in a house this big and you are still crying." Hinata tuned to see him and she saw her smile falter ever so slightly. "I don't have anyone, but I never cry. Never," he finished with conviction. He then turned to give the brightest grin she had ever seen. "Jana." The blonde waved goodbye and sped off running. She then realized she had never asked him his name. This is the best day ever, thought Naruto as he ran as fast as his little legs would allow him. Maybe even. Naruto continued speeding towards his home with a huge smile on his face, and when he reached his door, he opened it in a rush. "Tadaima," he said happily and expectantly at the darkness of his apartment. His smile and excitement didn't drop instantly, but slowly as the seconds passed and no answer came back. He closed the door, and with a single tear going down his cheek, he got into his bed. The sun was setting in Konoha, and Naruto held a small frown as he walked down the street. It was the day before his 6th birthday, not that he was looking forward to it. He noticed that the glares were increasing as his birthday grew closer, and he doubted they would stop tomorrow, but at least he planned to treat himself to something. He had been saving money for a long time now. His frown disappeared as he arrived at the place he was looking for, a small store that sold masks, but Naruto wasn't going to buy any mask. He smiled softly as he remembered when Inu helped tie his scarf. He was going to buy a mask that looked just like Inu's. He scanned the store for Inu's mask and found one that looked similar. He let out an excited sound. One moment he was excitedly counting his rim and the next, he was on the ground as the little money had saved spread through the streets. "You brat. Go away," said the deep voice of a man. Naruto looked up at the voice, and his eyes met the face of an angry man with a thick mustache and brown hair. He concluded that he was the owner of the store and the one who shoved him. "What's the problem?" complained the little blonde from the ground as people gathered to see what was happening. No one batted an eye when they saw who the store owner pushed, even if it was just a 5-year-old child. "What are you doing here? Go away, you plague," yelled the store owner. Naruto wasn't surprised anymore by the glares he received everywhere he went, but something made this man's glare different. Naruto had never seen anyone looking at him with so much hate. "What? I was only looking to buy that mask." Naruto's voice had started as a scream, but with every word, it got softer and sadder. "You want that mask? Here you can have it and never let me see you again," said the owner, throwing the mask and hitting Naruto on the head with it. Naruto gave the man the best glare he could muster. He had been practicing it for a while now. He didn't know it, but his glare would somehow turn his cerulean eyes into ice blue as cold as a blizzard. He got up, dusted himself, and went to grab the mask, and when he looked up, he saw that more people were glaring and murmuring at him. "What do y'all want? Why are you looking at me like that?" His first question came out as a loud demand, but the latter was sad and pleading for answers, and in a much softer tone. He grabbed the mask and ran towards his apartment. When he reached his place, he threw the mask at the wall and slammed the door behind him. He slid it down, resting his back against the door, and brought his knees to his chest. "Why me? Why do they look at me like that? What did I ever do to them?" Naruto sat there brooding for a long time. It wasn't until his stomach growled that he snapped out of his depressing thoughts. He made his way to the fridge only to find it empty. He sighed. He would have to buy something. He only bought fruits or things he needed to heat up because he couldn't cook. His hand went to his pockets to count his rim only to find them empty, and he groaned. "I dropped everything I had when that man pushed me, and I forgot to pick it up." Naruto thought angrily before his thoughts became more depressing. "I'm such an idiot. I guess I'll go to the forest and see if I can catch something, but it's already night." Though Naruto was a little scared of the prospect of going to the forest so late at night, then his stomach sounded again, and he made up his mind. "I'll go quickly, and if I can't find something, I guess I'll just return and wait until the old man brings me money to buy food." Naruto frowned. Digi should have already been here. He just sighed in resignation and got ready to head out. "It's raining." "Seriously?" As he was walking through the mostly empty street of Konoha, a smell hit his sensitive nose. It smelled delicious, he had never smelled something so mouthwatering. He was actually drooling a little before he noticed. He forgot about heading towards the forest and unconsciously followed the smell. He arrived at a small restaurant and was about to enter when he remembered what had happened earlier. He was about to leave when he saw a man waving at him to come over. Naruto was very reluctant to get close to the man, but the man smiled at him and spoke. "Come on, kid, you will get sick if you stay under the rain." Naruto shyly nodded and entered the restaurant. "Take a seat, kid." Naruto still was reluctant, but he decided to sit. "Here, dry yourself. You will be sick if you remain soaked," the man said with a smile. Naruto wanted to say he never got sick, but he still accepted the towel the man offered. The man noticed that the kid still looked a little afraid. "You know that I don't bite, right kid? Unless you are made out of food." Naruto stared at the man for a moment before letting out a laugh together with the old man. Seeing that the kid was more relaxed, he decided to ask questions. "What are you doing in the rain? Where are your parents? Are you lost?" The smile that Naruto had instantly vanished. "I don't have parents," said Naruto in a whisper but loud enough to be heard. "I was planning on going to the forest to get some fish, but I got distracted." The man at first thought it was a lie, but seeing the sadness in the boy's eyes told him that it was nothing but the truth. "What the heck is this kid doing here? The orphanage is on the outskirts of the village." "My name is Tucci, kid. What's yours?" "Uzumaki Naruto." Now his voice had fear and sadness mixed in. "Ah, that explains it then." Of course, he knew who the boy was. You would be surprised how much you hear in the stands of a restaurant when the customers think nobody is listening. Tucci took a second to look Naruto over. He was small and rather skinny for what Tucci guessed was his age, and also looked scarred and ready to run at a moment's notice. "He is just a kid." Though Tucci sadly. "Well, Naruto, are you hungry?" asked Tucci gently. Naruto quickly shook his head, but his stomach growled, completely contradicting his mannerisms. Tucci grinned. "Are you sure, Naruto? I think your stomach says otherwise." Naruto answered by murmuring something Tucci didn't quite hear. "Sorry Naruto, what did you say?" "I don't have any money," said Naruto loud enough for Tucci to hear. Tucci wanted to slap himself. He should have known. "Don't worry about it, kid. I'll give you a bowl of ramen to fill your stomach," Tucci offered as he made his way to the kitchen. "Ramen?" asked Naruto raising an eyebrow. Tucci stumbled and nearly fell. He turned around to look at Naruto in surprise. "I would have thought you would know, given your name." Even my name? Naruto was visibly confused by that statement. Yeah, I would guess you were named after Narutomaki. That didn't do anything to alleviate Naruto's confusion. It's something you eat with ramen. Offered Tucci, which seemed to clear the confusion. That or your name means Maelstrom. Naruto frowned in deep thought before speaking. I like Maelstrom a lot more. Tucci chuckled. Alright Naruto, Maelstrom it is. And Tucci went to prepare the ramen. A few minutes later, he came out with a steaming bowl and placed it in front of Naruto. Naruto's eyes went wide as saucers as he looked at the bowl. Tonkatsu miso ramen. I made it extra special since it's your first time eating ramen. Itadakimasu, said Naruto cheerfully. Naruto brought his chopsticks to his mouth, not knowing what to expect, but as soon as he tasted the ramen, he stopped. Tucci was about to ask if something was wrong when Naruto screamed. It's delicious, Ak-chan. Thank you so much. And Naruto started eating at speeds that Tucci rarely saw. At that moment, Tucci's daughter came out of the kitchen. "Tusan, what is that noise?" The noise in question was Naruto slurping his noodles. "That my daughter is the sound of a very satisfied customer." AM turned to see who was eating at the same time. Naruto looked up to see who the new voice was. "Oh, isn't he cute, Tusan?" AM had stopped Naruto from eating and was now affectionately grabbing his cheeks. Tucci was about to scold AM, but noticed that even though Naruto had turned deep shades of red, he wasn't complaining, so instead just chuckled. After AM had stopped, Naruto was rubbing his sore cheeks. "That hurt En-chan." After hearing him call her that, she quickly started pulling Naruto's cheeks again. After Naruto finished his ramen and AM stopped pulling his cheeks, Tucci said he was closing the restaurant and willing to walk Naruto home. When they arrived, Tucci was surprised by Naruto's apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was pretty good considering he was an orphan. "Alright, Naruto, I expect to see you soon. If you ever need anything, stop by, okay?" Naruto nodded and beamed at Tucci, who ruffled his head, and then AM started to pull his cheeks again before they left. Naruto went to bed feeling happier than he had in a while. Naruto was happily walking in the streets of Konoha, holding someone's hand as he pointed at different stores. He noticed an older man holding his hand. He tried to turn his head to get a look at him, but the man's face was dark, as if a shadow covered it. He also noticed that people weren't glaring at him. They were smiling and waving. He was about to wave back at them when he heard a voice. "Hey, kid. Want a mask? I'll give your dad a discount. How does that sound?" Naruto was about to ask about his dad when he assumed it was the man holding his hand. "I'll buy you the mask, Naruto," said the man as he ruffled Naruto's hair. "We are not that far from the house, can you get there by yourself? I want to stop and buy your mother some flowers, but I guess it would be too boring for you, no?" Naruto nodded excitedly and hugged the man, still unable to see his face. Naruto didn't know where his house was, but it seemed his feet did as they moved of their own volition, not that he was complaining. He quickly arrived at a door, opened it, and screamed. "Tadaima." Naruto immediately heard a soft giggle followed by a sweet voice. "Akari, Naruto." Naruto's smile had never shone brighter in his life. "Ka-chan. Where are you?" "Well, someone is excited to see me." "In the kitchen, Naruto." The sweet voice answered. Naruto instinctively made his way to the kitchen. He saw the figure of a woman getting something out of the fridge. "Go shower, Naruto. Dinner will be ready in a few minutes." But Ka-chan he wanted to say he wanted to see her face when he was interrupted. "Naruto, you have to obey me, remember?" she said in a soft scolding tone. Naruto didn't know why, but just said okay and went to shower. When he came back, he heard the voice of the man that was holding his hand earlier and was about to enter the kitchen when there was a knock on the door. "Naruto, can you get it, please?" "Okay." He answered cheerfully and went to open the door. Naruto opened the door only to find the owner of the mask store glaring. "What did I tell you, brat? I never wanted to see you again." Naruto turned to call his parents, but was surprised when he found himself in the middle of the street, surrounded by familiar cold glares full of hatred. At lost. Is that kid? Nuisance. Worthless. Little by little, his fear escalated, and he did what any other kid would do in this situation. "Ka-chan to-chan," Naruto screamed in fright, only to hear mocking laughter in response. "As if someone like you would have parents," screamed someone from the crowd, followed by murmurs of agreement and more insults. Naruto covered his ears and closed his eyes and started to scream. "Stop. Stop. Stop. Stop it." And Naruto woke up shaking and breathing heavily. He noticed that the sun was already shining outside his window. He didn't know how long he stayed in bed, willing the tears back into his eyes. "Stop crying. It never fixes anything. No matter how much I cry, it doesn't change anything, it never changes anything." He told himself for what he felt was the millionth time. He didn't know how much it took, but eventually, he managed to control his emotions. He laid down in his bed for hours blankly staring at the ceiling. It wasn't until he heard a knock on his door that he stood up. He was about to open the door when his nightmare came back into his mind and he suddenly froze. It wasn't until he heard a familiar voice that he could move, the voice of his Jiji. Although he wasn't in a good mood, he still greeted the old man. Naruto noted that the man looked noticeably sad and serious today. The man entered and they sat in silence for a while in the kitchen. Hiruzen first broke the silence by speaking and taking out an envelope. I apologize for not coming earlier. This is for this month's living expenses, spend it wisely. He said stiffly before getting up and making his way toward the door. Hey, wait. Said Naruto, and Hiruzen turned. What happened to my parents? Asked Naruto timidly. I already told you before. Said Hiruzen in a monotone way. They died a long time ago That's not what I want to hear. Said Naruto angrily. I know they died 5 years ago when the Kyuubi attacked the village. I know that. I just want to know who they were. What kind of people were they? What were their names? Hiruzen stared at him briefly before returning and walking to the door. It's no use in asking about that. It won't bring back the dead. And the elder Hokage left without another word. Naruto stood in the kitchen before he went to the nearest wall and started punching in frustration. It didn't hurt, or rather, it hurt less than what he was feeling due to the old man's words. After his little hand was numb and a little bloody, he stopped and sat silently on the floor. He completely lost track of time until his stomach reminded him about eating. Naruto turned to see the small envelope with the money he had been given before scoffing. He went to his room, grabbed an orange hoodie, and exited his apartment to head to the forest. Naruto was returning from the forest, and it was already dark. It had taken him a little longer to catch enough fish this time due to how frustrated he felt. He was still bitterly thinking about his conversation from earlier and chuckled bitterly at the memory. He didn't realize he had taken a different route until he reached a clearing filled with stones and a big monument. It took him a few seconds to realize this was Konoha's cemetery. He thought about his parents and wondered if they were there. He started looking through the names of the headstones with concentration. He was so concentrated that he only heard the horrible cries of pain and anguish when he was too close. He saw a man crying and kneeling in the grass with several empty glass bottles at his side. Hey, are you okay? Asked Naruto with concern. The man looked up and realized it was yesterday's store owner. When the man saw Naruto, his eyes blazed as hot as hell. You monster. You took them away from me. The love of my life and my precious daughter. The man's words were coming out slurred. He made to stand up but fell. Naruto stared at the man in confusion and shock. Suddenly Naruto was overcome with fear and a single thought. Run. Naruto quickly turned around and started running. It was even 10 steps before he tripped on one of the tombstones and felt his right ankle twist painfully. The man slowly made his way toward Naruto, swaying with every step he took. He was meters away from him when a familiar white mask with red markings and spiky silver herd appeared behind him and delivered a chop to his neck, causing the man to fall unconscious to the ground. Kakashi eyed the man at his feet with disgust. He had never thanked Kami for being here, but now he was grateful for at least this once. He doubted that the man would go as far as to kill Naruto, but he was sure the blonde wouldn't be unharmed if he didn't step in. Inu! Screamed Naruto in relief after a while. He tried to stand up, but his right ankle failed to hold his weight. Kakashi looked up to see Naruto struggle to stand up. Are you hurt? I think I twisted my ankle when I fell. Naruto winced as he tried to stand. Can you walk? Naruto tried again but couldn't. Kakashi just sighed. I'm a glutton for punishment, aren't I? He thought as he approached Naruto. Climb into my back, I'll carry you to your home. Naruto stared at him briefly before nodding and climbing into Kakashi's back. Are we just going to leave him there? Naruto asked, surprising Kakashi. He will be out for a while, I'll be back for him after I drop you off. He answered and felt Naruto nod against his shoulders. Kakashi was surprised by how quiet Naruto was. They had been walking for a while now and he barely made a sound. Naruto always seemed to be about to explode with all his hyperactiveness. Inu? Naruto suddenly spoke. Why did that man say that I took away his daughter? Did I ever do something wrong? I don't remember doing anything like that and my pranks are mostly harmless. He also said I was a monster. I'm a monster? He asked in a low voice devoid of his usual brightness. Shit. Think quick though, the copy ninja. He was drunk and you didn't do anything wrong, nor you are a monster. He had half a mind on telling him to stop with his pranks. He doesn't even know the number of D-rank missions Genin squads have nowadays because of him. Drunk? What's that? It's what happens when you drink too much sake. It makes you act differently and say things that aren't true. But sake. The drink you will try until you are much older. He felt Naruto nod against his shoulder again and they remained quiet for a while. You know, yesterday I tried to buy a mask from that man. I wanted one that looks just like yours. It wasn't the same, but it was pretty close to yours, Dadabeo," said Naruto with a little more energy. Kakashi felt a stab of pain when he heard the similar verbal tick Naruto shared with Kushina, but continued to talk. "Did you buy in the end?" Kind of. I mean, the man pushed me out of the store and threw the mask at me, and I just left after that. I have the mask, but it's broken." Kakashi seldom paid attention after hearing that the man pushed and threw the mask at Naruto. He was too busy deciding how long he would wait to take the man to Konoha's police department. 10 minutes should be enough once he wakes up. He concluded mentally before answering. "I see. Were you alright?" "Yep," answered Naruto plainly before they once again fell into silence. "Alright, here we are. Can you walk now?" Naruto climbed out of Kakashi's back and walked. "Yeah, I feel much better now. Thank you so much, Inu." At speeds that would have Minato proud, Naruto hugged Kakashi fiercely. Kakashi just patted him on the head before turning. "Good night." Naruto got visibly deflated. "And happy birthday." Naruto's mood instantly improved and he gave Kakashi a wide grin. Kakashi later realized that I hadn't burned to hold Naruto this time. He smiled softly as he returned to the cemetery to spend some time with the guy he had knocked out before throwing him to the police force. The next day Naruto woke up and was about to leave his apartment to buy food when he saw a package on his dining table that wasn't there yesterday. He cautiously opened it, hoping it wasn't a prank, only to find a mask identical to Inu's. No amount of glares or under-the-breath insults could do anything to wipe the huge grin of genuine happiness off his face during the rest of the day. January 11th. The day is the day my journey to become the greatest Hokage ever begins, Dadabeo. Though Naruto as he woke up to the sound of an alarm ringing. The academy lasted 6 years and you could start to attend when you turned 6. The first 3 years were pretty much regular schooling with an introduction to chakra theory and Taijutsu, shinobi world history, and weapon throwing. In the last 3 years, you had a more advanced Taijutsu class that lets you spar with your classmates, advanced chakra theory, introduction to ninjutsu, introduction to genjutsu, tactics, and overall shinobi skills. You can even graduate early in your 4th year if you pass all the exams. However, you still need to complete the 2 remaining years unless the Hokage approves you to become a genin. He quickly took a shower and dressed. He put on his black knee-high shorts, black ninja sandals, and his favorite orange shirt with Konoha's symbol in black and green goggles before heating some instant ramen. Naruto had been waiting for a few months to be able to enroll in the ninja academy and finally, with the new year also came the first day of the academy. He had begun physical training by doing push-ups, sit-ups, crunches, and running laps around the village. He would often find a very strange man dressed in all green with huge eyebrows running with his hands while screaming something about the power of youth. Still, every time approached Naruto, something strange would happen. Flashback. Naruto was finishing his daily lap around the village when the strange man dressed in all green approached him while doing a handstand with 3 fingers in each hand. "How youthful to see you again, kid. Your flames of youth burn with the heat of 100 suns, but you will not outdo the green and sexy beast of Konoha. I will do 50 laps, no, 75 laps around the village with my hands while carrying a boulder between my legs. Then I will climb the Hokage monument with one hand tied behind my back and both legs tied together," said the man with huge eyebrows while Naruto's sweat just dropped. "I need to train to become the greatest Hokage ever, Dadabeo," responded Naruto. "An extremely youthful endeavor, but you are missing something that will make you train 20 times harder while looking like a sexy beast," said the man while winking and giving him a thumbs up, all while still standing on his left hand. "Really? Can you help me get what I'm missing?" asked an excited Naruto. "Of course," said Guy while doing a backflip and landing on his feet. "You just need to wear this youthful uniform." He pulled out a green piece like the one he was wearing and was about to give it to Naruto when a huge boulder hit him. A mere second after that, an Anbu with a dog mask appeared. "Here is the boulder you need for your training," said the Anbu, who then turned to Naruto and spoke. "I'm sorry for the interruption. Please continue your training." Inu. "Yeah, I'll be the greatest Hokage ever, so I can't stop Dadabeo." And with that, Naruto continued his training. I refused to let Naruto become a Guy Jr. When Naruto was out of sight, Kakashi turned to Guy. "Guy, how often do I tell you to stop corrupting little kids? How unyouthful of you, my eternal rival. I only wanted to help him achieve his youthful dream." Sorry, did you say something?" "Ag, curse you and your hip attitude, Kakashi." End of flashback. "Well, I better be on my way. I don't want to be late for my first day. Maybe I can even make a few friends." Unbeknown to our little shinobi in training, most parents told their kids to be careful with Naruto and that it's better to ignore him. Naruto entered the ninja academy as bright as ever, grinning at everyone despite the pang of loneliness when he watched some parents drop off their kids. Naruto reached the classroom and opened the door, only to meet the eyes of his new teacher. The teacher's smile quickly vanished and he turned to grab a paper from his desk. He was completely ignoring Naruto's salute. Naruto observed the man, he had brown hair pulled into a bun and a scar across his nose. He then eyed his new classmates and noticed a few glared at him too. "I think I'll sit at the back of the classroom, that way, no one can glare at me at least." When Naruto was going to his chosen seat, a random kid stuck out his foot and tripped the little blonde. Naruto fell face first, almost hitting his face, but he managed to stretch his arms at the last second. Even though he didn't hit his face, the classroom was filled with laughter. Only 3 students didn't laugh. Those were a boy who seemed asleep, a kid with sunglasses, and a little girl with short midnight blue hair. "Watch where you are walking," said the kid that tripped Naruto as he snickered. Naruto was about to respond, but he heard the voice of his new teacher. "Everyone be silent and you go and take sit," said the teacher sternly. "That baka, I will prank him in a way he will never forget," he thought as he walked to the end of the classroom and sat next to a chubby kid who was eating some chips and someone who appeared to be sleeping. He took the free seat next to the chubby kid and introduced himself. "Hello. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, the future greatest Hokage ever, Dadabeo. What's your name?" "I'm Akamichi Chimjai. Nice to meet you, Naruto," the boy replied. Naruto was about to ask Chimjai for a chip when the sleeping boy murmured something unintelligible. "What did you say?" Naruto asked a little too loudly for the boy's taste. The boy with pineapple-shaped hair slowly lifted his head as if it was the most strenuous task in the world before speaking. "Troublesome blonde. I'm Nara Shikamaru." And he dropped his head to sleep again. "Don't take offense, Naruto, Shikamaru is just really lazy." "Want a chip?" explained Chimjai. They talked for a while as more students came and filled the empty seats. "Alright, class, settle down. My name is Iruka Yamino, and I'll be your sensei from here until you graduate from the academy. I want each of you to say your name and a thing you like. If there are any volunteers, please raise your hand," spoke Iruka. Naruto instantly raised his hand to introduce himself, but the teacher did not see him. The teacher pointed to another kid and one by one, they began to introduce themselves. "I'm Inyazuka Kiba and I like dogs," said a boy with spiky brown hair and red marks on his face. "My name is Yamanaka Ino and I love flowers. Uchiha Sasuke and I like to train." "Troublesome. I'm Nara Shikamaru and I like to sleep." A few giggles could be heard throughout the class. All the students introduced themselves one by one until only 2 were left. Naruto saw a small girl with midnight blue hair and lavender-colored eyes stand up timidly. "She seems familiar for some reason." "And my name is Hika Hinata and I like sea cinnamon R rolls," stuttered the girl, causing a few kids to laugh, and she immediately went bright red. Naruto frowned and immediately got up to divert attention from the girl. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto and I like ramen," screamed Naruto. "What a stupid name. Did you name yourself after your favorite food?" asked a kid and the laughter increased. Naruto's eyes immediately started twitching. "My name means Maelstrom Baka." "Alright. Settle down," instructed Iruka, although even he found the situation funny. As Naruto sat down, he saw that Hinata was looking at him and he gave her a smile which she timidly responded. Iruka then started introducing the academy basics. Throughout the day and the different subjects, Naruto had multiple questions. Still, whenever he raised his hand to ask a question, Iruka ignored him and turned the other way while all the other kids answered their questions. After hours of boring lectures from Iruka came the lunch break. Naruto didn't know anyone, and most kids seemed to know each because they used to play together in the park before joining the academy. He had tried to join them occasionally, but every time he came close, the kids would start running from him like he was an evil monster, or the parents would quickly separate them. He tried his luck by talking to other kids in the academy during the lunch break, but it didn't go well. At the end of the day, Naruto was heading to the Chirakus to talk with Tuchi and Am with a smile that didn't quite reach its eyes. Naruto sighed as he swayed back and forth in a swing surrounded by snow. The year would be coming to an end soon. If Naruto was being honest, it sucked. He had given up on being a good student and training halfway through the year. He focused on continuing to grow his reputation as a prankster. He understood a decent amount of what Iruka taught when he was paying attention, but he was rudely ignored whenever he had any questions, leading him to lag and lose interest in the class and often miss class to pursue more entertaining endeavors. "I can't wait to graduate from this stupid place. Who needs the academy anyways? I'm going to be an awesome ninja and Hokage." He was lost in a daydream about being Hokage when he heard someone scream. "You're a monster." Naruto perked up at the insult and he turned on instinct. For a brief second, he half expected to see the same man from the cemetery, but instead, he saw 3 kids surrounding a little girl he recognized as one of his academy classmates. It took him a second to realize that they were calling the girl a monster and not him. He didn't know why it made him feel angry. They weren't friends. Not really. He remembered meeting her before the academy, but apparently, she didn't. The few times he tried talking to her, she was always really quiet. Still, he vividly remembered the time he was called a monster. The insult had stuck with him for months after that day. "Your eyes are creepy," said one and was followed by laughter. "Yep, you are just a monster, aren't you?" This caused the girl to start crying. "Hey, stop that," screamed Naruto as he got closer. "Huh? Who are you?" "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Remember the name because I'll be Hokage one day, Dadabeo." "Hokage? You are an idiot," said the tallest kid with a sneer on his face. "I'll show you," Naruto retorted before trying to perform the bunshin. 2 copies of sickly-looking Narutos appeared next to him before they fell to the ground. Poor Naruto was so busy looking at the clones on the ground that he never saw the punch aimed straight at his nose. 1 second, he was looking at his clones, and the other his world went black. Naruto blinked a couple of times as he regained consciousness. He instantly remembered that he was about to fight some kids. "I'm not done yet. This time it's going to work." He then realized that the kids were nowhere to be seen and only the girl was still there. His shoulders sagged in disappointment. "Hey, are you okay?" asked Hinata. "They caught me off guard, you know, normally, I would have beaten them," answered Naruto dejectedly before cheering up a bit. "You are Hinata, right?" Hinata nodded. "They ruined your scarf." Naruto turned to see that she was holding his ripped red scarf. He sighed and just waved her off. "I'm sorry," she said sadly as a tear started to slip from her eye. "Hey, don't worry about it," he then wiped the tear that was slipping from her eye. "And don't cry about either. Crying doesn't change anything, it never changes anything." He offered her his brightest grin to cheer her up before standing up and running off. Excuse me?" Naruto turned to her. Thank you very much," Hinata said with a timid smile as she unconsciously clutched the ruined scarf. Naruto just gave another grin before running off. The first 4.5 years of the academy came and went without much happening aside. Naruto was now 10 years old, about to be 11, and sitting in the academy classroom next to Sakura, whom he had a crush on, and Sasuke. Haruka, as always, was giving his usual boring lecture. At least, that was what Naruto thought. He had stopped paying attention a long time ago. Suddenly he heard Haruka say something that caught his attention. "Imagine if the world were to end tomorrow, who would you like to spend your last day with?" "Like that would ever happen," muttered Naruto under his breath. "How would that even happen?" screamed Kiba. "Just suppose the moon began to fall towards the earth," offered Haruka after scratching his head for a second. "If it's the end of the world, I would like me to fall instead of the moon," joked Jai, causing everyone to laugh. "Just write down who you want to spend your last day on earth with," said Haruka as the class quieted down and got to work. Haruka looked over at his students to ensure everyone was working when his eyes landed on Naruto. Without knowing or intending to, his eyes became cold and distant. He remembered that day as if it was yesterday. Seeing his mother's lifeless body as his father shouted at him to run away. "How I wish I could spend one more day with him." His eyes then moved all over his students before landing on Naruto again. He saw that Naruto was glaring at his paper intently. As he felt his thoughts darken again, he shook his head before his thoughts got too depressing and started walking around the classroom. He didn't realize when, but he started reviewing what his students were writing. He wasn't surprised when he saw the answers his students were writing. He had been walking for a few minutes until he saw a completely blank sheet. He shifted his eyes slightly and saw spiky blonde hair. It would be a lie if he said he was somewhat curious about what the blonde would write. He caught a slight movement in the corner of his eyes and saw that he had begun writing the words mom and dad before he furiously erased his answer. The action took aback Haruka. Of course, he knew that Naruto was an orphan like him, but he had never really dwelled on that fact. No, every time he saw the blonde, he couldn't help but remember the demon that resided in him. He knew that Naruto wasn't the Kyuubi. Only a few ignorant shinobi and some civilians thought that, but almost no one could look past what he had been burdened with. Most shinobi just remembered all the pain of what they lost that night. A few of them were weary and mistrusting of the blonde, or more specifically, they were fearful that the seal would fail at any time. Jinchuriki weren't often the most stable people around, very few could have been categorized as mentally healthy. Sealing a biju isn't an easy task at all. Several factors come into play for the making of Jinchuriki, such as the seal used, the age, vitality, mental fortitude, and how much access you want to give to the Jinchuriki to their biju's chakra. Most villages in the elemental nations were rather liberal with how much access they gave to their Jinchuriki, since a Jinchuriki without access to their biju's chakra doesn't serve much purpose. The problem is that the more access you gave the Jinchuriki to the biju's chakra, the more access you gave the biju to their container, and the more stress you put on their body. Such practices gave Jinchuriki a bad reputation, rightfully earned for the most part. Rumors and tales of Jinchurikis going on a rampage while being possessed by their Biju weren't hard to find. Iruka continued his train of thought as he walked back towards his desk. After a few minutes, he couldn't help that his gaze found Naruto again, but something was different. He wasn't loud or obnoxious, rather, he was quiet and unmoving. His eyes weren't shining with the mischief you usually saw. Instead, his eyes looked empty and sad. This sight quite put off Iruka, but abruptly Naruto started to move. He was curious about what the blonde was doing, and suddenly he saw that he had made a paper airplane and thrown it out of the window. Iruka blinked a couple of times before remembering he was the teacher and, thus, had to scold him. "Naruto. Don't throw out your paper." He saw that the blonde was grinning, but his eyes remained dull and lifeless, and then the irony hit him like a hammer. He had heard the Hokage tell him that Naruto wasn't that different from how he used to be back in the academy. He had barely suppressed the scoff that attempted to escape his lips that time, but now he saw it as clear as day, which troubled him. It troubled him a lot, but for the time being, he tried to bury those thoughts and concentrate on being a teacher. Naruto was uncharacteristically subdued for the rest of the period, only moving when he heard the bell that signified that lunch break had begun. With sagged shoulders and his head down, Naruto made his way to an old and bitten swing under a tree and quietly swung back and forth as he watched his classmates play and talk under the sun. He was trying his hardest to put a smile on his face and try to make some friends, but he didn't have it in him today to act cheerful. Still, he didn't want people to think he was sad, so he tried to put his most neutral expression possible. "I can't believe them. They just had to embarrass me in front of everyone again." He heard a voice that belonged to Sakura. Looking up, he saw that it was Sakura talking to another classmate. "I think they are kind of funny, you know," admitted the girl Sakura was talking with after a few giggles. "At least your parents joke around, mine are always serious." "They aren't funny," Sakura insisted. "What's not funny, billboard brow?" said an approaching Ino. "Other than your attempts on Sasu-kun." "Shut up, Ino pig. You'll see that Sasu-kun will be mine. The only reason Sasu-kun would ever talk to you is if he wants to put an ad on your forehead for everyone to see." The two former friends continued to bicker while Naruto was stuck in one of the first sentences he heard. "At least your parents joke around, mine are always serious." Hearing kids talking about their parents was always a strong gut punch for Naruto. It was a slap in the face that reminded him how alone he was, and he had already gotten a good reminder earlier today with Iruka's activity. As his thoughts became more depressing, he looked toward the ground filled with dying leaves while his eyes became dull and lifeless. The phrase continued to repeat in his mind until his thoughts started to go to places he tried to avoid. What were my parents like? Were they serious, or did they like to joke around? Naruto's thoughts continued to spiral into a depressive state the longer he thought about the topic. With Iruka. I need sake. Unfortunately, he couldn't follow through with his thoughts because he was currently working, surrounded by kids, and it was barely 10 a.m. So instead, he settled for a cup of coffee at the teacher's lounge. All the way to the teacher's lounge and back, the blonde never left his mind. When he returned to the classroom to prepare for the next class and saw out of the corner of his eyes that someone was sitting next to the window, he was snapped out of his thoughts. He fully turned to see who was there and saw that it was Hinata. He noticed that she was looking out of the window with a sad expression while holding a hand to her chest. He approached the window to see what was bothering the little girl. He followed her line of sight and his eyes landed on Naruto for what felt like the millionth time in the day. He saw the boy sitting alone on a swing below a tree as all the other kids played and talked under the sunlight. At face value, it looked like a blonde kid with a blank expression playing on the swing, but Hinata and Iruka saw the loneliness and pain hidden behind his eyes. The words the Sandaime had said the last time he went to his office to complain about the blonde's behavior rang in his head. Naruto never had a father or a mother to care for him. He is singled out and doesn't know why most people won't even look at him. How would you feel if people turned their backs on you everywhere you went? That's why he gets in trouble so that people will notice him. It may be hard to see, but he is always thinking about the family he doesn't have. He is hurting inside. The bell rang again, and both Hinata and Iruka jumped slightly. They both accidentally locked eyes, causing Hinata to go crimson red. Hinata tried to say something, but couldn't manage anything intelligible. Iruka decided to be merciful to the young Hikage by giving her a small smile and going about his normal routine. Later that day, when all the students were long gone, Iruka kept thinking about his blonde student. He sat in the lounge for a couple of hours with a contemplative look, analyzing Naruto's behavior. The Hokage had been spot on. It wasn't long before he started analyzing his behavior towards the blonde through his 3 years of teaching him. He faintly recalled Naruto's first day at the academy, since it was the first time he found himself so close to the Jinchuriki and his first day of teaching. He remembered that Naruto had been eager. Sure, he would get distracted occasionally, but he would ask questions. He never asks questions anymore. Mentally pointed out Iruka. Maybe because you never bothered to answer them. A second voice seemed to answer in his mind. That's when it hit him. I'm a shit teacher. Iruka, who prided himself in his teaching abilities, started feeling incredibly guilty. Sure, the blonde was a bundle of energy that would get distracted easily, but he wasn't the only kid like that. There were other students in his class just like that, and he had made an effort to make them pay attention. He even got Kiba to pay attention most of the time. Aside from Naruto, only Shikamaru didn't pay the slightest bit of attention. He analyzed Shikamaru for a while, but quickly realized that the Nara was just extremely lazy. I don't even know if he is a bad student because I never bothered to be a teacher to him. Was the conclusion he reached about the blonde Uzumaki. Iruka sighed. He decided that he had done enough self-reflection for the day and started to go through the papers he had collected from today's early activity. Some people may call it snooping, he calls it getting to know your students better. He kept shuffling through the papers and drinking coffee, trying to keep his thoughts of Naruto. The reality that he had been a shit teacher was too depressing for him to think about it longer than he needed to. He kept looking at the names his students had written before his eyes landed on one with Naruto's name. He choked on his coffee and coughed for a whole minute before he regained his composure. His eyes went to the corner of the paper and saw that it was Hinata's paper. He had to rub his eyes to make sure his weren't playing tricks on him and went as far as trying to dispel a non-existent genjutsu. After that, he chuckled. They would certainly make an interesting pair. Iruka decided that he had done enough research on his students and left the academy. He went home determined to be the teacher that Naruto needed. October 10. Naruto woke up with a gasp. That damn nightmare again. He screamed inside his head. For the last 4 days, Naruto had been having the same nightmare over and over again. It would start like the best dream ever. He would be walking to the academy with his parents and they would meet the other parents at the entrance. One moment he would see his parents talk to their old friends and the next, he found himself in the middle of the street, surrounded by those cold eyes full of hatred and contempt. The days leading up to his birthday were always the worst time of the year for Naruto. Nothing like what happened all those years ago in the graveyard had happened again, but the glares and whispering increased along with his loneliness as his birthday approached. He hadn't stepped anywhere near the cemetery ever since then. Still, he didn't feel threatened at any point. Quite the contrary, strangely, he felt safer around this time of year. He couldn't explain why, but he thought that if something occurred, Inu would help him just like he had done before. Maybe I should go look for my parents again. Though Naruto. He had the whole day free due to being Saturday, after all. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about his parents ever since Iruka's activity. He sat in his bed, holding his knees to his chest, waiting for it to be late enough. Once it was dark enough, he grabbed his most inconspicuous clothes, which meant orange shorts and a black hoodie with a red swirl on the back. After getting in his clothes, he rushed to the cemetery. He slowly started walking from grave to grave, searching for any signs of family. He was determined that today would be the day he would find out who his parents were. He scrutinized each grave he passed by with concentration that no one had ever seen from the blonde. Naruto had been searching for around 20 minutes before he heard an old voice. "Naruto-kun, what are you doing in here?" Hiruzen very well knew what the blonde was up to. Ever since Kakashi had reported the incident in the graveyard with the drunk man, Hiruzen had decided to keep an eye on him on the blonde during his birthday. He had been in his office doing paperwork when he decided to look for Naruto in his crystal ball. As he had suspected, he saw him in the graveyard. He immediately left his office to distract Naruto. Naruto was sure that his heart had forgotten how to beat for a second too long before it came back in full force. One moment it had stopped, and the next, his heart wanted to beat its way out of his chest. He recognized the voice, obviously. Still, it didn't make it the least frightening. He turned to see the old face of his Jiji. "Oh, Hi-Jai-chan. I'm millimeters MIH," stammered Naruto. Hiruzen just chuckled. "Walk with me, Naruto-kun." Naruto, feeling he had been caught in the middle of one of his pranks, just nodded. He started to walk next to Hiruzen while still looking at the headstones. "Have you been having a nice day, Naruto-kun?" Naruto didn't reply as he concentrated on names he could see on the graves. He coughed to get his attention and repeated the question. "Oh yeah. It's been, nice." He responded as his gaze kept searching for a name. Hiruzen knew that they were approaching Kushina's grave and internally sighed. "Forgive me, Naruto, but you can't know yet, not with me explaining several things you aren't ready for. I hope you find it in your heart to forgive this old fool one day." He made a hand sign as Naruto kept looking at the names engraved in the tombs. He never realized that he had just passed his mother's grave, as a genjutsu made it seem like a completely different name was written on it. The guilt Hiruzen felt was excruciating, but he endured, believing it was the best for Naruto. They walked in silence for a while. Hiruzen fought with his conscience and Naruto with his disappointment. Would like you some ramen to celebrate your birthday, Naruto-kun. Naruto's head perked up a bit at the mention of his favorite food, but the lack of response from his stomach made it clear that he wasn't in the mood. Thank you, Gigi, but I think I better get to my apartment before it gets too late. He answered in an uncharacteristic depressive tone. Hiruzen nodded and let Naruto leave for his apartment. Hiruzen stared grimly at the retreating little blonde, and once he was out of sight, he lit up his pipe and took a large breath. He turned and started walking to a particular grave. Once he found, he stared longingly at the inscribe on it, Sarutobi Bawako. I'm but a fool, aren't I? I don't want to burden his shoulders with expectations and the truth, but it isn't fair, isn't it? He spoke to his late wife's grave. After a long silence, he gave a humorless chuckle. I'm a hypocrite. I always tell him that nothing can bring back the dead, yet here I'm, looking for your counseling as I used to do until we were separated. Hiruzen took a deep breath and painfully let it out. His eyes glazed, and he spoke in a voice that told a story of sorrow and yearning. Goodbye, Bawako. Naruto dejectedly looked to the ground and made his way to his apartment with his shoulders sagged. He had looked at every name in the graveyard and couldn't find anything that gave him a sense of belonging. Wordlessly, Naruto got into bed and drifted off to sleep. Naruto was walking in the middle of the street looking around his surroundings as if searching for something. He felt lost, and he didn't know why. He knew he was just a couple of blocks from Ichiraku's, but the feeling of not knowing where you were filled him. He was walking without a sense of direction, keeping his eyes alert in case he found what he was looking for. He started to notice that people were surrounding him slowly, their eyes as cold as the harshest blizzard, and he could hear them whispering. What a waste of space. No wonder nobody loves him. What a pest. My kid goes to the academy with him and says he is an idiot. Monster. He is that kid. He felt like they were closing in on him as if they were about to smother him, and all he wanted to do was to cry out for his mom and for her to come and help him, just like he had seen several kids do at the park. Naruto. He froze entirely and briefly wondered if he had imagined it until he heard it again. Naruto. He heard it properly now. A beautiful and melodic voice was calling his name, and he felt he needed to follow it. He pushed the villagers away and started to run, hoping to hear his name again. Naruto. The voice repeated, and he did his best to follow it. He had never heard anyone say his name that way. It was cheerful, but it also carried an air of anxiousness and eagerness. Where are you? Screamed a frantic and panting Naruto, fearful that he wouldn't be able to find the one calling out his name. He heard it again, though it was coming from the forest, and he ran into the woods without thinking twice. The tall and thick trees didn't let a single ray of sunlight go through their branches, thus, most of the forest was dark even when the sun was still out. But he could see the light not far ahead, not unlike the light you can see at the end of a dark tunnel. He continued to run towards it in instinct, his heart was pounding, and his breath was ragged. The light continued to shine as he got close until it became too much, and he had to close his eyes. He continued running until, instead of hearing his name, he heard a giggle. He snapped his eyes open and saw that he was no longer in the forest, but in a grassy clearing in front of a beautiful waterfall. He was surprised by the beauty of the place that he momentarily forgot to turn around. Naruto. This time the voice was trying to hold back its laughter. He turned and saw a woman wearing a long green dress, trying to stop her laughter and failing miserably. She probably had to be the most gorgeous woman he had ever seen. The long and shiny red hair crowned her delicate and refined features in a way that made her look like a princess, and a laugh so contagious and unapologetic. He was so entranced by the sight of the woman that he could only cock his head and watch her calm down. The woman finally managed to get her laughter under control. She smiled sheepishly at him before walking in his direction with grace in each of her steps. Naruto only stared at her, it went deeper than her beauty, he didn't understand why, but she had a face he would like to remember forever. When she got close enough, cerulean eyes met Violet once. Her eyes were unlike any he had ever seen. They weren't freezing with disdain, searing with rage, or sad with sorrow. They were like a warm blanket on a winter night or a cool breeze in the middle of summer. They were comforting. He stared intently into her eyes, engraving them into his memory forever. He then blinked and lost sight of her Violet, but the feeling of comfort never left. If anything, it increased. He had no other words to describe it other than perfect. He felt as if he had never felt before, and perfect was the only thing that came to mind. He realized that she was hugging him, and instinctively he brought his around her waist and burrowed his face into her stomach, holding on for dear life. He stayed like that for a while, willing his eyes to remain dry until he felt a hand lift his chin, and cerulean orbs met Violet ones again. The woman kept staring at him, and he could see in her eyes that she was encouraging him to speak. He had a suspicion about who this woman was, but he was too scared that the answer might not be what he hoped for. As the seconds passed, the fear of disappointment was replaced with the need to know. His mind was split into two halves arguing whether to ask or not. He felt he knew but was too afraid to ask directly, so he settled for a neutral option to minimize his disappointment. Slowly and with a hesitant tone, he asked. "Who are you?" The soft smile she held was instantly broken into a million pieces and was replaced by a shocked expression that turned into a pained one, and it finally rested on an angry one as her hair started to sway menacingly. Seeing the rage on the woman's face, Naruto quickly detached himself and started apologizing without really knowing why. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Watching his outburst, Kushina schooled her features and approached him with care. "You don't have to be sorry for anything, Naruto." Seeing that Naruto remained slightly apprehensive and scared, she panicked a little. This was not going how she had hoped for. "I'm the one who is sorry. It's just I didn't expect you not to know my name or who I am, and I just don't. I'm rambling, aren't I?" Naruto gave the slightest of nods. "Sorry, but when I get excited or anxious, I just can't stop talking, Dadabane," she explained sheepishly. Naruto might as well only hear the last word she spoke because it was the only thing he was concentrating on at the moment. "Dadabane." Kushina became even more sheepish at the mention of her verbal tic. "I use some weird phrases when I talk fast. I tried to control it, but it sort of slips out when I'm nervous or excited. What about you? I hope you didn't get any of my bad speech patterns." Naruto opened his mouth to speak but could not make an intelligible sound. "No one told you anything?" she asked in a sad and bitter tone. Seeing that Naruto shook his head, she decided to introduce herself. "I'm Uzumaki Kushina, and I'm your..." She never got to finish her introduction because she was tackled into a hug just before she could get the remaining words out. She looked down at the mop of blonde hair hugging her, locked eyes with him, and heard the words that made her feel like the happiest woman ever. "Ha-chan." She nodded with a gentle smile, and both enjoyed the reunion in silence for a moment. After a few minutes, Naruto separated himself from her with tears dancing in his eyes. He was barely able to contain them. "This is not a dream, right? Are you real? I really have a mom?" This time Kushina managed to keep her anger in check. "You always had a mom, and yes, I'm real, Naruto." Naruto nodded, still willing his tears back into his body. "You know it's okay to cry. But it never fixes or changes anything." She was surprised by the fire with which her son said that. "True, but it's alright to cry when you are happy since it won't change what you are happy about." Naruto nodded, letting his tears fall. Kushina closed in and kissed her son on the forehead as she patted his shoulder. Naruto was startled by the demonstration of affection and blushed a little, but nonetheless, he liked it. "I have wanted to meet you for so long, Dadabeo," he said as he again wiped tears from his eyes. Kushina beamed at the verbal tic, secretly glad he wasn't also a copy of Minato personality-wise. "You definitely are my child. There are so many things I always wanted to ask you," said Naruto excitedly as he quickly wiped the few remaining tears from his eyes. Kushina's happy smile never left her face. "Sure, you can ask me anything you want, but first I have to ask you some questions, okay? For each question you answer, you can ask me one," she said in an innocent tone that masked her anger at why Naruto didn't know her. "Come, let's sit down." Naruto's excitement went through the roof at what seemed to be a game with his mom, and he sat on the grass beside her. "Okay, Naruto. First question, how is Jiraiya treating you?" Naruto's excited face changed to one of confusion as he repeated the name. "Jiraiya? I don't know who that is." Kushina became pale for a second before she started to gain red color to her complexion, not unlike her hair, while doing her best not to scare Naruto. "He is tall and has long white hair. He is supposed to be your godfather." "I have a godfather?" Kushina had to take a few deep breaths before continuing to speak. "Yes, he was to take care of you if anything happened to Minato and me." "Minato? Who is that?" Kushina's anger was put on hold as a new smile formed on her face. She figured that if she didn't know her, he also didn't know about Minato. "He is your father. You got your handsome looks from him, you know. Your hair and face are practically a carbon copy of him. You are a chibified version of him with shorter hair," she said while giggling. Naruto blushed at the compliment. "Did Two-chan also have this?" Naruto pointed at the whisker-like birthmarks he had on each cheek. Kushina chuckled and was about to explain before she grimaced. "Does he even know about the Kyuubi?" She wondered briefly, but seeing that Naruto's question meant that most likely he didn't know anything about it. "If he doesn't know, I have to tell him. I was about his age when I learned I was about to become a Jinchuriki, and Mito-sama was so valuable to me during the process." "No, those are for a different reason. I'll tell you in a bit, I promise. But I have more questions that I need to ask you before that." Naruto nodded in acceptance. "So, if you don't live with Jiraiya, who do you live with?" "Kakashi." Tsunade came back to the village. "Kakashi? Tsunade?" he repeated in the same tone as before, and realization struck Kushina. "You live alone, don't you?" She asked quietly as she became deeply saddened and disappointed. Naruto nodded in confirmation. Since I can remember, Hokage-chan sometimes stops by to give me money, take me to Ichiraku's, or sometimes just to talk. Explained Naruto with the slightest change in his cheerful tone. Hokage? Are you referring here as in Sarutobi? Yeah, the old man is one of the few that are kind to me. He is really busy most of the time, but he sometimes invites me to. Naruto stopped abruptly as his brows furrowed. What do you mean he is one of the few people that are kind to you? As soon as she asked, she dreaded the response she was going to get. She could feel Naruto retracting into a shell and a lump forming in her throat as she mentally prayed to every god she knew. She closed her eyes, waiting for Naruto's answer. The seconds felt like years as she hoped for her son to be able to live the normal life of an orphan at least. Suddenly Naruto's demeanor did a 180 and he became cheerful, too cheerful. It's nothing, Ka-chan. He said with a huge grin. I just play a ton of pranks in the village, most people don't appreciate how funny they are thought. Kushina gained a soft smile on her face. He may look like Minato, but his personality is more like mine. She mentally celebrated before opening her eyes and turning her head to Naruto, but as soon as she locked eyes with him, she knew something was wrong. How did she know? She honestly couldn't tell, but she could feel Naruto wasn't being honest, at least not entirely. She lost her smile and stared at Naruto. Naruto. I don't appreciate being lied to. I'm your mother, and you shouldn't lie to me. She scolded him. Naruto was startled by the scolding, he was used to people scolding him, but this was different. Instead of getting mad or brushing it off, he felt a deep shame, and it hurt. It hurt a lot. He could only stare at the ground as his shoulders sagged. I'm sorry. He mumbled before going deathly quiet. Kushina kept her severe gaze for a few seconds before dropping it and sighing. Naruto, I don't want to make you sad or be angry at you. I scolded you because I love you. Naruto's head turned in the blink of an eye to look at his mother. You love me? His tone almost disbelieving. Kushina was surprised by the question. Of course, I love you. I have loved you ever since I learned that you were going to be born. I have never loved anyone more than I love you, Naruto. She explained as if it was the most obvious thing in the world, but with a bit hurt in her voice at the question. Naruto smiled at the words. It made him feel something warm all over his chest, a feeling he didn't think he couldn't describe, but soon his face became confused. He seemed to be thinking over the answer, which worried Kushina even more. She was about to ask if something was wrong, but Naruto surprised her with another question before she could ask. What does love mean, Ka-chan? Kushina blinked a couple of times before she went into deep thought. It means that I will always accept you no matter what you did wrong, that I won't stay mad at you for long, I will always want what is best for you, and that I want to see you achieve your dreams. And you really love me? I can only hope you understand one day how much I love you, Naruto. She said before she crushed Naruto in a hug. They stayed like that for a while before Kushina resumed the conversation. Okay, Naruto, let's try again. What did you mean by that the Hokage is one of the few people that are kind to you? Naruto swallowed hard as fear began to creep up inside him and he struggled to get the words out. Would she still love him if he found out he was a monster? You promise you won't hate me? Kushina again squeezed Naruto in a hug and let a few tears out without him realizing before softly speaking. I could never hate you. No matter what, I will always love you. Naruto took in a deep breath and spoke. Most people in the village don't like me. They say I'm a monster or a demon. He then turned to see his mother in the eyes. I'm a monster. Kushina couldn't hold it anymore, she had tried to keep her emotions in check to make this reunion a happy one for Naruto, but the last bit of control had left her as soon as she heard her son ask that question. She crushed Naruto into a hug and held on to him for dear life while letting out a few strangled sobs. It's not fair. He somehow ended up living the worst parts of Minato's and my life. He is an orphan that lives in a village that hates him for being a Jinchuriki. She cried out in her mind. Naruto was confused and a little scarred by her mom's reaction. Was he really a monster? Ka-chan. Kushina gripped him harder before letting go and wiping her tears off. She placed a hand on Naruto's cheek and tried putting as much of her feelings as possible in her words. Naruto, I want you to listen to me very clearly. You are not a monster and never will be one. I want you to understand that, okay? She pleaded. Naruto gave her a small nod in response and asked. Why do people say the Ka-chan? Kushina pondered how to break the news about Naruto's status as Jinchuriki for a while, and after a moment she got an idea. Naruto, do you know anything about the Kyuubi? Naruto thought hard for a while and remembered. It was a beast that attacked the village 9 years ago. I think the Yondaime died killing it to protect the village. Kushina took in a deep breath. That is not exactly what happened. She said in a heartbroken tone as she began reliving her final moments. Naruto tilted his head and raised an eyebrow. Then what happened? I will tell you, but you got to promise me you won't interrupt me, okay? She got a little nod in response. Good, well, do you know anything about Kenjutsu? She asked. Kenjutsu? Never heard of it. He answered as he scratched the back of his head. Kushina nearly had a heart attack when she heard that. Kenjutsu is the art of sealing things into other things. Such as sealing a kunai into a scroll. Our clan was known and feared for our knowledge of Kenjutsu. Clan? What clan? Kushina had to grip the grass hard to keep her anger in check. We had a clan, the Uzumaki clan. I assume you haven't heard anything in the academy. She said bitterly as she mentally cursed the old monkey for letting her clan be forgotten. She received a confused stare and a shake of his head. I'm sure I would remember Koch-an, but I never knew we had a clan. He answered honestly. Letting out a sigh, Kushina spoke. I tell you everything about our clan later, but getting back on topic, do you know what are the Bijk? The blank stare from her son was all she needed to elaborate. In this world, there are 9 massive masses of chakra known as the Biju, and the Kyuubi is one of them. You understand that? He nodded in response. Well, the Bijk are extremely powerful, and they have caused incredible amounts of destruction throughout history, causing people to refer to them as demons and monsters. The Bijk are often sealed into other people to gain that power or be protected from it. The people who have a Bijk sealed inside them are known as Jinchuriki. They are not the beast. They contain merely that, their container. Naruto's eyes went wide as saucers as a bad feeling and questions filled his mind, but he kept quiet for the moment. I was one of those people. Naruto instantly made to interrupt, but Kushina held a hand up, telling him to let her continue. I was chosen to imprison the Kyuubi. I'm not originally from Konoha. I was brought here from my home village Uzushiogakure due to my special chakra. I held the Kyuubi for several years in secret. Only a few people knew my status as a Jinchuriki in the village, and I was able to grow up without much trouble. So, I'm a Jinchuriki. Just like you? Asked Naruto, a little nervous. Kushina gave a sad smile. The day you were born, Kushina was thinking about how to explain everything that happened without letting out the more morbid details or the role the masked man played. She didn't want Naruto to learn there was someone to blame for what happened that night, at least not right now. The day you were born, my seal weakened and the Kyuubi was able to get out, causing great destruction in the village. To prevent his destruction, your father decided to sacrifice himself to seal it in you to prevent more destruction. Naruto visibly gulped at the explanation but remained quiet. The life of a Jinchuriki is never easy, Naruto, and I'm so sorry that you have to experience it just like I did. Why did Two-chan do that to me? Kushina let out a huge sigh. Naruto, first of all, I want you to understand that your father loved you as much as I do. It was a difficult decision for him, but he was responsible for the villagers' lives and the village's future. Why? The responsibility of the villagers' lives and the village's future. Kushina nodded. It was what he swore to do once he took that forsaken hat. Hat? What hat? Now Naruto was extremely confused. Kushina blinked a couple of times and then realization dawned on her. Your father was Namikaze Minato. Naruto furrowed his brow in deep thought. The name did ring a bell, but he couldn't quite remember. As Naruto continued to struggle, Kushina let out a small smile at how Naruto's brow furrowed similarly to her husband when he was deep in thought. My father is the Yondaime Hokage. He asked more to himself and then his eyes widened in realization. My father is the Yondaime Hokage. He then turned to his mother with a question evident in his eyes. Kushina nodded in confirmation. My father is the Yondaime. My father is the Yondaime. My father is the Yondaime. Naruto started to move around excitedly as he screamed, which made Kushina feel a twinge of jealousy, but she continued to smile. I'm going to be Hokage like Two-chan Tabeo. Now Kushina's smile did falter ever so slightly. Okay, calm down. You understand why he did, right? A Hokage has to sacrifice himself for the village, and what he did was the most difficult sacrifice he ever had to make. Your father was also a very noble and honorable man, and he wouldn't let anyone else make that sacrifice if he wasn't willing to do it himself, but he had a third important reason. The most important one actually. Naruto calmed down and prepared to continue listening attentively. Your father sealed the Kyuubi in you because he believed you could one day control its power. Two-chan believed in me. He suddenly became a little reserved, he didn't know why, but he didn't feel the necessity of pretending to be cheerful right now. He believed in you blindly. Do you believe in me? Kushina nodded. I didn't want you to become a Jinchuriki, not because I didn't think you wouldn't be able to handle it, but because I didn't want to place such a heavy burden on you, but I don't have any doubt you will be able to handle it even better than I did. She said with a sweet smile. The words had the exact opposite effect she would have expected. Instead of looking happy, he seemed rather gloomy as he looked down at the ground. What's wrong, Naruto? Are you sure I can? I mean, I'm not good in the academy. I can't even do a proper bunshin. Clone, I'm bad with the henge. transformation, or throw a kunai straight, and there are a lot of things I don't understand or know. He continued looking at the ground when he felt a hand tilt his head to the side and locked eyes with his mother. Remember that everyone has weaknesses and strengths. I also used to struggle in the academy, and believe it or not, I also had problems making a standard bunshin. Uzumakis have huge chakra reserves that are hard for us to control at first. If you train your chakra control, you should be able to perform the bunshin without a problem. She said in encouragement, which seemed to work but not all the way, so she continued. Don't get depressed if you can do something on your first try, and if you need help or don't understand, just ask your teachers in the academy. Naruto broke eye contact as he heard the last part. What is the problem, Naruto? You shouldn't be afraid of asking questions. It's part of learning and growing up. It's just that when I used to ask questions because I didn't understand something, Iruka-sensei would always ignore me. He doesn't pay me any attention unless it is to scold me for one of my pranks. He tries not to look at me, but when he does, I can see him glaring at me just how the villagers look at me. Kushina pursed his lips at the statements and was inwardly fuming. She thought for a second until he came up with a solution. Why don't you ask your friends for help? Instead of seeing his eyes light up at the suggestion, she had to observe how they filled with even more sadness. Naruto let out a mumble that she couldn't understand. Sorry, Naruto, I couldn't hear you, can you repeat it, please? I don't have any friends. He let out a little louder than he intended. A heavy silence fell, and after a while, Kushina asked. Do they look at you like the villagers? Kushina's right hand was balled into a fist and she felt a huge need to hurt someone. Some of them do, but it's different. They just say that I'm a loser or annoying. I've heard some kids say that their parents told them to stay away from me. He answered dejectedly. Kushina had to swallow the lump in her throat. Is there anyone in the village that is kind to you? Naruto nodded. Tuchiak-chan and Amni-chan always welcome me to their restaurant, and Hokage-chan, and there is also. Also, who? Well, there is Inu. Inu? He felt that she knew that code name. Wait, wasn't Kakashi's code name Inu? She asked herself. He is an Anbu guy that has been kind to me. He once saved me from a guy in the cemetery. He recalled a little more upbeat. Saved you from a man in the cemetery? Kushina repeated slowly. One time, I went to the forest, got lost on my way back, and ended up in the cemetery. I saw a man crying near a tomb, and I got close to ask him if he was okay. He said that I took the woman he loved away from him. He tried to attack me, and I twisted my ankle, but Inu appeared to save me, and then he carried me home. Naruto had started the story rather excitedly, but his voice became slower with each word. He now understood why that man had said what he said. Don't even think it's your fault for a second. She said as if she could read his mind, which made Naruto go wide-eye. How did you know? Because I'm your mother. She replied with a proud smile. Listen, Naruto, you may not believe what I'm about to tell you, but it is the truth. The truth is that you are a hero and have been ever since you were born. I'm a hero? He asked with clear disbelief in his tone. Kushina nodded. You are a hero for holding the Kyuubi at bay. Each day the sun rises and sets, it's another day when you save the village, so don't think that what happened was your fault in any way. Understood. Naruto nodded and fell silent as he digested all the information he had already been told. After a while of leaving his son to his own thoughts, Kushina spoke. More happened that night, but I'll let your father tell you when you meet him. Naruto was broken out of his thoughts as excitement started to fill him. I would be able to meet Tu-chan? He asked as he completely ignored the first part of the sentence. Yes, he sealed a little part of his chakra into the seal so he could meet you, but it works differently from mine, so I'm not sure when you would be able to meet him. Naruto nodded excitedly as he couldn't wait to talk to his dad. Well, now that I finished with every major thing, how about we get to know each other more? Yeah. Kushina brought a hand to her chin as he started to think about what to ask her son. Let's see, oh, I know. What is your favorite food? Oh, that's easy. Miso ramen with extra pork for Michiraku's. Is the best Adebayo. Yep, he definitely is my son. She thought as she laughed. Mine is salt ramen. It seems that you got more than your speech from me. She said playfully. But aside from ramen, what is your favorite food? I guess mine would be red bean soup, and you? Naruto went into deep thought for a moment before coming up with an answer. I'm not really sure. I mostly eat ramen, if it's not from Ichiraku's, I buy instant ramen. It's not as good, but it still is ramen. He replied happily. Kushina's brow furrowed as she went into her mother mode. The pair of them continued to make up for the lost time by sharing stories about pranks and how Minato and she got together until they arrived at another topic. What is your dream, Naruto? Naruto closed his eyes as he brought a hand to his chin in a thinking pose. I want to be Hokage so that everyone in the village would have to respect and acknowledges me. Kushina nodded in understanding. You know, when I was in the academy, I also wanted to be Hokage. The first kunoichi to be Hokage and someone from another country no less, but as I got older, I realized that it's not what I wanted. Really? Yes, I realized what wearing that hat meant, and I figured it wasn't what I really wanted. I didn't give up, I just changed my dream. Changed your dream? He repeated slowly, wondering if it was possible. She nodded. I realized that there were things that I wanted more than being Hokage, but also that I didn't love Konoha the way I loved Uzushio. What could you possibly want more than being Hokage? Said Naruto in genuine wonder. And why does it matter that you didn't love Konoha as much? Kushina smiled and responded. The answer to your first question is very simple, you. Me? Yeah, you. I wanted to be a mother and have a family to be happy with and re-establish the Uzumaki clan in Konoha. You're my dream, Naruto. She finished with a sweet smile. Naruto's eyes filled with tears, but he quickly wiped them off and hugged Kushina while mumbling thank you. Over and over again. As for your second question, well, your father used to say the village was like his family to him. He loved the village so much that he would do anything for it, something that I can't say is the same for me. She admitted. Being Hokage means more than being the strongest or doing paperwork. It means you will care and protect the village's future and will be the first to lay down your life to ensure the future is bright. Kushina rubbed the back of her son in comfort while she spoke. I'm not saying this to discourage you, Naruto. Whether you want to be Hokage or not, it's up to you, and I will be happy with whatever your dream is. But I want you to know it's okay to change your goal if you work hard to achieve it and never give up. Naruto seemed to be giving Kushina's words a deep analysis before his face of concentration was replaced by a huge grin. I won't ever give up, I promise. Kushina smiled at her son before she felt her chakra begin to dwindle, so she closed and tightly hugged Naruto one last time. Naruto, I know part of you believes this is a dream and that I'm not real. There is a clearing just like this one near the old Senju compound. Minato and I left some gifts for you there. She felt Naruto nod in affirmation against her shoulder. Remember everything that I've told you. Don't be picky with your food. Eat vegetables and more foods other than ramen to grow up strong. Also, don't stay up late, you will need lots of sleep. As for friends, you don't need a lot of them. You need one you can trust, and that will be enough. I know you don't like the academy much, but you still have to graduate, so keep up your studies and train hard. I know you inherited my sense of humor, so if you are going to do some pranks in the academy, at least don't get caught. Also, about the 3 prohibitions for shinobi, save as much money as possible from your missions and don't waste it on unnecessary things. Too much alcohol will ruin your health, so when you are of age, please drink in moderation. Finally, about women, I'll admit that I don't understand much about this since I'm a woman, but try to find someone that loves you just like I do. Someone who will see past your defects and mistakes and love you with them. I would normally say to find someone like me, but since our personalities are so similar, maybe someone more like your father will help you keep you in check. I want you to always be the perfect gentleman with whatever girl you end up with, just like your father was with me. She continued with tears flowing down her face and in a broken voice. I'm so sorry, my little Naruto. I'm sorry for placing such a heavy burden on your shoulders by making you a Jinchuriki. I'm sorry for being able to live by your side. I'm sorry for not being able to show you each day how much I love you, and I'm sorry Fo. You don't have to apologize for anything, Ka-chan. I understand why you did what you did and I don't hold it against you or Tu-chan, and now that I know that you love me, I will never forget the feeling. I'm glad that I'm the son of 2 awesome people. He said as he tightened his grip on his mother. I love you, Ka-chan. Kushina let out a few sobs, not wanting to let go of her little maelstrom, but feeling that her time was ending, she separated herself enough to kiss his forehead and look at his face to make sure she memorized each part of it. I love you too, Naruto. Never forget how much Mama loves you and thank you for being born to us. But those last words, her figure dissolved into the air and Naruto was left alone in the clearing as he wiped his eyes from the tears, but for once, he didn't will them to stop since it was alright to cry when you are happy. Ugh. Mumbled a groggy Naruto as he dusted the cobwebs from his mind and tried to orient himself. Last night was the most restful night of sleep he remembers ever having. It was the kind of sleep that when you woke up made you wonder if you were even in the same lifetime or universe. Naruto stretched in his bed like a cat while trying to get his mind jump-started. He barely noticed that he could no longer see the sun from his window, meaning it was pretty late in the day. He turned his head to his alarm clock and saw that it marked 3:51 p.m. and he groaned. Although Naruto was usually a ball of energy, he was not a morning person at all. Thus, the first couple of minutes of his day always became a test of whether he would give into the coziness of his bed or not. He was about to succumb to temptation when the whisper of a dream crossed his mind and he suddenly jumped out of bed as he began recalling his dream. No way. Naruto thought out loud as he reviewed all the information he had gotten in his dream. From meeting his mom and learning he was the Jinchuriki of the Kikbi no Imko to being the son of Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto sat silently and unmoving in his bed, reviewing everything from his dream. At the same time, a few tears escaped his eyes when he remembered the happiest moments. As he remembered everything that had happened in his dream, a little doubt mixed with fear began to creep up inside him. Could it possibly be that what he was remembering was just a dream? A fantasy created by the brain of an orphan child who cried out for knowledge about his parents on the day of his 11th birthday. Naruto's heart started to accelerate and he could feel it thumping in his chest as panic set in, but like an oasis in the middle of the desert, he remembered something. Naruto, I know part of you believes this is a dream and that I'm not real. There is a clearing just like this one near the old Senju compound. Minato and I left some gifts for you there. He could perfectly remember a lovely face with beautiful red hair and a melodic voice saying that to him. In a flash of yellow hair, Naruto started to put on some clothes to go and search for this clearing. Thank Kami it's Sunday and I don't have to go to the academy today. He thought excitedly as he zipped up his orange jacket and adjusted his green goggles. As he made his way to the door, he was surprised when he heard multiple knocking sounds coming from it. He silently walked closer to look through his door's spy hole. The jump scare that followed was rather comical and was due to that through the spy hole, a single huge brown eye that took most of his field of vision stared back at him. That single brown eye belonged to one Yumi no Iruka. What? Iruka-sensei, what's Iruka-sensei doing here? As Naruto mentally wondered why was his academy teacher coming to his apartment on Sunday and not looking too happy, another knock on his door broke him out of his thoughts. Naruto, I know you are there. I heard you. Open up, please, I need to talk to you. Iruka's slightly irritated voice sounded. Having been heard, Naruto resigned himself to open the door. Hi Iruka-sensei, is there something I can help with? Naruto then saw that his teacher was holding several books and scrolls in his arms and got a bad feeling about it. I was about to head out, so can you make it quick? Said a rather sheepish Naruto. Iruka's eyes started to twitch violently and he had to take a deep breath before speaking. Naruto, why didn't you come to the academy today? Huh? What do you mean? Why would I go to the academy today? He asked in confusion. Iruka couldn't hold it anymore. He had spent almost every second since last Friday thinking of the best to teach Naruto and make sure that if the blonde didn't learn, at least it wasn't because he didn't try it is all. He had been so motivated to teach the blonde, but come Monday, lo and behold, said blonde was a no-show. Previously Iruka wouldn't have given a shit if Naruto didn't show up. Hell, he would have actually enjoyed the unexpected but warranted break from teaching or attempting to teach the blonde Jinchuriki. But what happens now that he is finally ready to turn the page and be the best goddamn teacher the academy has seen? The blonde mess goes missing. If he could count on the blonde for something besides pranks, it was that Naruto always showed up to the academy, be it 5 minutes or 2 hours. It didn't matter. He would always be there to be his usual loud self. Having lost all his patience, Iruka's head grew inexplicably to gigantic proportions. You were supposed to attend the academy today because it's Monday. Naruto's confusion only grew at the statement. Huh, what are you talking about, Iruka-sensei? It's Sunday. Yesterday was Saturday. I remember because it was my birthday and I just woke up, which means it's Sunday. Under normal circumstances, Naruto's logic would have been kunai-proof but not today. You see, the revelations that had been made to him had caused him to be emotionally exhausted, hence why he slept for a day and a half. If it is Sunday, why all the other students were at the academy today? They were all on time and ready to learn. That was a lie, at least a partial lie. Every student besides a certain Nara had been ready. Naruto didn't respond to his sensei's statement, he just stared and gaped at him. Iruka, for his part, just sighed. Look Naruto, can I come in? There is something important that I want to talk to you about. Naruto seemed to think about it for a few seconds before nodding, letting Iruka into his apartment and leading him to the kitchen. Iruka was surprised by two factors when he entered the apartment. The first was that the apartment was far bigger than he expected and the second one was how messy it was. Iruka would admit that he wasn't the most organized person, especially during his teenage years, but holy shit, he couldn't hold a candle to Naruto. Dirty dishes, multiple empty cups of ramen, and an expired milk cartridge stood on the dining table, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the floor. Iruka actually wished he hadn't taken his sandals off before entering when he felt the sticky floor grab onto his feet. He scanned the floor as if it was bobby-trapped with explosive tags in order to not step on anything gross. I can't believe he lives like this is that. Never mind, I don't want to know. Just do what you came here to do Iruka. He said to himself. Naruto saw Iruka's expression and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. I'm sorry for the mess. I don't usually get visits. It's alright. Iruka said as he moved empty cups of ramen to place the books and scrolls he had been carrying. Naruto, I need to talk to you about your academy performance. Haruka said with a serious face as he saw the embarrassed grin melt away from the young blonde. You aren't on track to graduate, and I seriously doubt that you'll manage to pass like you did last year. He eyed the blonde skeptically, waiting for him to complain or deny it, but it never happened. The only thing that happened was that Naruto opened his mouth but quickly closed it, choosing to listen to Haruka. Haruka grabbed a piece of paper and started reading, "You are failing ninjutsu, jinjutsu, shinobi world history, and chakra theory." Haruka's words seemed to hit the ninja in training like a hammer. Haruka saw a very demoralized Naruto, which was the opposite of why he came here, and tried to lift his spirits up a bit. On a brighter tone, "You are doing good in survival skills, okay in Taijutsu, and although you are barely passing Shuriken Jutsu, I think you can improve a lot with a few pointers and practice." Despite the slight praise, Naruto's mood didn't seem to improve. The blonde seemed to be trying to glare a hole through his floor, and Haruka sighed. "Look, I know that you don't enjoy it, but if you want to become a ninja, you'll have to graduate, and for that, you have to study and improve your grades, and for what it's worth I'm sorry." Hearing those last words, Naruto looked up in astonishment. "Why you are sorry?" he said, slightly confused. Haruka gave a grave nod. "It's true that at the moment you aren't a good student, but it's also true that I haven't been a good teacher to you. I know what it is like to come home with no parents and that you rather do other things besides your studies, but it's important. I'm partially to blame for your academic performance, but starting tomorrow, that will change. I will answer every question or doubt you have and try to explain it to you as best as I can." Naruto remained quiet as he scrutinized Haruka with his cerulean eyes. "Do you believe I can graduate?" he asked in a low tone. Haruka lifted an eyebrow at the blonde's behavior and reaction. It certainly wasn't the usual loud and confident blonde he was used to seeing in the academy. "You know, I used to be a lot like you when I was your age. I used to play a lot of pranks and ignored my studies. I did worse in the academy than you are doing now. Still, eventually, someone made me become serious about being a ninja, and I graduated. So if I could, I believe you can." Naruto met Haruka's gaze, and feeling that his teacher was being honest, he nodded wordlessly. "I promise that I will be a better student from now on, and that I will graduate to Bayo." Haruka was used to hearing the blonde make outlandish claims like how the blonde was going to become Hokage one day, but hearing his voice now, it seemed fueled with pure resolve, which made Haruka nod in approval. "Here is everything you have to catch up with." Haruka signaled to the pile of books and scrolls on the table. "You will need to study everything in there in order to pass this year," he said as he stood up to leave. To Naruto's credit, his face only faltered a bit at seeing how much he would have to study. Haruka opened the door to leave when suddenly Naruto spoke. "I'm sorry too for being a difficult student and thank you for believing in me." Haruka turned around and with a soft smile, he said. "No problem." After seeing the door close, Naruto returned to his kitchen, saw the book pile, and sighed before compassing himself. "I'll get to you later, but right now, I have something to do, Dadabayo," he screamed while pointing at the books. It had taken him little time to find where the Senju compound was, and now, he was going around the forest searching for the clearing he had met his mother in. He was running through the woods when he heard a thumping, someone shouting numbers. 396, 397, 398, 399, if I can't do 500 log kicks, then I'll do 1000. Squats. Naruto's hyperactive mind was momentarily distracted from his search as he followed the voice that kept on shouting. 404, 405, 406. After following the sounds of voice for a few seconds, he found a kid about his age with long black hair fastened in a braid who wore a cream tie-kai uniform with brown pants. Naruto also noted that the kid had abnormally thick eyebrows. He observed him continue kicking the long for a few seconds before shrugging and continuing with his search. Eventually, Naruto found the clearing. He stood there analyzing every little aspect he remembered from his dream. Everything was an exact replica of his dream, from a specific patch of grass to where the tallest tree was, except for a small and slightly run-down cabin hidden behind some trees. Naruto gulped as he approached the nondescript cabin with a curious step and stopped in front of the door for a minute, not knowing really what to do. After staring blankly at the door for a minute, he slowly brought his hand to the rusty doorknob. As soon as his bare skin touched the cold metal, he felt a sense of familiarity overwhelm him as he heard a soft click that signaled the door was unlocked. After a slight push and the sound of a creaking door, Naruto's eyes were welcomed by the sight of an old closet, a bed, and a nightstand. Naruto's curious eyes danced over the small room in wonder until his cerulean orbs came to rest on something placed over the nightstand. Without taking his eyes off the object, Naruto walked with uncharacteristic carefulness next to it. Naruto made it to the nightstand only to stare in silent awe at the dusty picture that stood in there. Tears started coming out of his eyes as he softly started saying, "It wasn't a dream, it wasn't a dream, it wasn't a dream." Naruto laughed and cried simultaneously as he celebrated everything he learned about himself, be it good or bad, because it meant that he had a mother and father who had loved him. Naruto didn't know when but grabbed the picture and sat on the small bed as he wordlessly admired the picture of his parents. It was a beautiful picture of the pair when they were 16 years old. Minato wore a baby blue kimono with yellow highlights. Kushina had on a beautiful pale yellow kimono with several flowers printed on it. Both had huge smiles on their faces as the fireworks exploded behind them. After staring at the picture for a while, Naruto put it back on top of the nightstand and began exploring the small cabin. He started with the closet. Standing before it, his eyes landed on some words randomly written in the closet. Sword of Shinobi's love. It read, which confused him a lot, but he opened the closet only to find some dusty covers, blankets, and old clothes that were too big for him. Some people might have seen it as trash, but to Naruto, there wasn't anything more valuable in the world at the moment. After examining the closet, Naruto opened the drawers of the nightstand only to find 2 scrolls next to a piece of paper. Naruto grabbed the paper and carefully read it over. Adoption form for Hada Kakashi. His brows furrowed slightly as he remembered the name his mother had spoken. She had asked him if he lived in Kakashi, Tsunade, or Jiraiya. Who were they? Her mother knew them enough to expect him to live with them. Still, he was completely sure he had never met any one of them. What had happened to them? Did they die like his parents? Did they ignore his existence because of the Kyuubi? Did they even know that his mother was also a Jinchuriki? Naruto's thoughts had become rather dark rather quickly, and he had to snap himself out of his spiraling train of thought. Concentrating on other objects in the drawer, Naruto pulled both scrolls out and examined them before opening the yellow scroll he held onto in his right hand. He opened it only to find the kanji for family, taijutsu, ninjutsu, notes, and fukinjutsu. Naruto, without thinking, put his hand on the kanji for family and subconsciously let out a small pulse of chakra. An envelope materialized out the scroll. Genjutsu, he said automatically as he stared in awe at the scroll and envelope. Naruto opened the envelope only to find a letter from his father to him. Dear Naruto. It's me. Your old man. Yep, I'm your father, Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sado. I'm pretty awesome, huh? Actually, if you are reading this, I guess I wasn't that awesome, really. Naruto, I don't know what events led you to read this letter from me, but I just want you to know I'm sorry. There is nothing I would have liked more than to be there with you and watch you grow up with Kushina and be a family together. I want you to know that although you haven't been born yet, you are already the best thing to ever happen to me. I wish I could have seen you grow into the great man and shinobi I know you will be. I love you, Naruto, and although I may have never told it to you in person or even met you yet, it doesn't make it any less true. Take care, my son, and know I'm proud of you. With love. Namikaze Minato. Naruto let some fuel fall on the letter as he read it. Thank you, 2chan half-sobbed Naruto as he brought the letter close to his chest. For the most part, Naruto still had to digest that his father was the greatest hero the village had ever seen. On top of that, he was holding what could possibly be the most valuable scroll in the whole ninja world. He just couldn't believe it, but when he turned his head to see the picture of his parents together, it just had to be true. Ka-chan wasn't joking when she said I was a chibified version of 2chan. He thought as he touched his shorter hair. He folded the letter back into the envelope with great care as he shifted his eyes to the rest of the scroll. Normally he would have dived right into the ninjutsu part, trying to find some kick-ass jutsu to show the people how cool he was, but after reading his father's words, he wanted to approach this with precaution. Naruto then turned his eyes to the red scroll he assumed was placed there by his mother and opened it. It looked identical to his father's scroll, but instead of saying family, it said clan history. Naruto repeated the same process as he did with Minato's scroll, and another envelope appeared from the larger scroll. Naruto quickly opened the new envelope and found another letter and a deep red covered book with a swirl in the center. My baby Naruto. I really hope that you never get to read this letter, but if you are, I'm sorry for not being there with you. You are the most precious thing to have ever happened to me, and I'm glad that you are at least safe. I'm not really good with letters, but I want you to know that I love you so much that it hurts to write this letter. Don't you ever forget or question how much I love you. And because I love you so much, I made you this gift. In this scroll, you will find everything there is to know about our clan, from the traditions and values we had to the powerful techniques that once made our clan feared throughout the elemental nations. Since, sadly, I'm no longer there, you're the one that needs to carry the Uzumaki name. I have complete confidence that you will make me and the clan proud of the Uzumaki you will become. Good luck Naruto and never ever give up. With the eternal love of a mother. Uzumaki Kushina. Naruto's tears flowed without restraint at this point, but he smiled nonetheless. Several questions formed at the back of his young mind, like why did the Hokage didn't tell him about his parents or the Kyuubi. The Hokage had known his parents, it was impossible for him not to know, and the whole village seemed to know about the Kyuubi. His mother had told her about how Kumo had attempted to kidnap her because of who she was and how his father saved him. Would they try to kidnap him just like they did with her? With all those questions, Naruto decided to store them at the back of his mind like he often did with the most depressing matters of his life. Having buried the more morbid and depressing thoughts, Naruto concentrated on the book that had appeared along with his mother's letter. Grabbing the old deep red cover, Naruto read the title out loud. The Uzumaki clan. The clan that rules the whirlpools. Although Naruto wasn't one for books, he handled it with extreme care. He felt excited at the prospect of learning something about his clan. Opening the old book, Naruto delved right in. Naruto yawned as he closed the book. He had read a good portion and learned about the lore and traditions of his clan, from their blessed bodies with huge chakra reserves and vitality, to their prowess as censors and sealing masters. The Uzumakis were also known for their fiery and outgoing personalities, determination, and belief to never go back on their word. Above everything an Uzumaki has, the most valuable and important thing is their word. A true Uzumaki never goes back on their word. Naruto took those words to heart. Naruto wanted to keep reading about his clan, but remembered he had made a promise today. He had promised to be a better student to Iruka, and according to his mother, he also needed proper amounts of sleep, so he decided to leave things for now and go to his apartment now. He exited the small cabin, observing that the sun had already set and the moon floated in the starry sky of Konoha. Trying to remember the path he took on his way here, Naruto started walking around the dark forest. He continued to walk until he heard the shouting and thumping he had heard earlier that day. Getting curious again, Naruto followed the noise only to see the same kid from earlier still practicing. However, he now had a much more sluggish pace. 1993, 1994, 1995, just 5 punches more. He shouted in an exhausted voice. After finishing the next 5 punches, the kid plummeted to the ground like a puppet with his strings cut. "Hey. Are you okay? Do you need help?" Naruto asked as he approached the now resting kid. The kid made to stand but instantly fell back on his ass. It was then that Naruto noted who truly trashed he was. His skin of knuckles was torn off and his pants had holes. "Hi. I'm fine, I was doing a little training and now I just need to return to my house and rest," he said in a suspiring cheerful voice, considering how beat up he looked. "Right," said Naruto as he saw the slightly older kid attempt to stand again, only to fail. He tried to analyze how he was looking at him. He saw that his eyes didn't hold the usual contempt he was accustomed to and decided to approach him to help him stand up. "Thanks. My name is Rock Lee," he said between ragged breaths as Naruto slung Lee's arm over his shoulder. "Nice to meet you, Lee." My name as he was afraid of how Lee would react to him if he knew him by name, but decided to trust the look in Lee's eyes. "Uzumaki Naruto." He paused again to see if something in Lee's demeanor changed, but was glad to see his smile didn't falter. "I'll help you home." "So, what are you doing training like that? Are you in the ninja academy? I don't remember seeing you there," asked Naruto attempting to make a conversation. "Hi Naruto-san. I'm in the last year of the academy. Are you also in the academy?" "Yeah. I think a year behind you. You must be pretty awesome if you train that hard." Lee's demeanor instantly changed. "Actually, I'm the dead last of my class," he murmured in an embarrassed tone. Naruto laughed good-naturedly but stopped when he saw Lee glaring at him. "Sorry, it's just that I'm also the dead last of my class. I just find it funny that we ran into each other by chance." With that, Lee returned to his usual demeanor as they continued walking to Lee's home. A week later. Naruto was trying his damn hardest to concentrate in class and listen to Iruka's last lecture of the day. He really was, but right now his mind revolved around 3 names. Jiraiya, Tsunade and Kakashi. He didn't even have their last names to go off from. Are they shinobi? They seemed close with his parents, and shinobi often only hung out with other shinobi for the most part. This much he had picked up when he saw the uniformed man and women throughout the village. If they were shinobi, did they die on a mission, and why had he not met them if they weren't? He knew that those people couldn't be related to him by blood. After all, he was probably the last survivor of the Uzumaki clan, and he read in one of Minato's journals that he had also been an orphan. So blood ties were out of the picture, and also, if they were family and alive, they would be with him, right? The fact that he held the Kyuubi shouldn't have scarred his family away. But this Jiraiya guy is supposed to be my godfather and Kakashi, my brother. Aren't families supposed to love each other? For Naruto to know that his parents had loved him made him feel special and whole, but the fact that the people that his mother expected to be with him hadn't ever shown up still made him feel, well, he didn't quite know. He continued his thoughts as a frown developed on his features and he gained a blank look in sky blue eyes. Naruto. He seldom heard his name being called, but it didn't quite register. Naruto. The voice became louder. "Naruto? What? What happened?" he said dumbly as the class erupted in laughter except for a select few. Iruka just had to take a big breath. I asked what battle brought the Third Shinobi World War to an end. Oh, the Battle of Kanabi Bridge, in which my Naruto trailed off before recuperating. My idol, the Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato, brought down the last push from Iwagakure to cross the border between Hai no Kuni and Kusa no Kuni. There was a moment of stunned silence from the class in which multiple mouths hung open, pairs of eyes were repeatedly blinking, and a smile formed on the face of a lavender-eyed girl. You forgot to say that he killed 1,000 ninjas in that battle alone. A loud voice came from a random student in the class. You're wrong. Naruto said simply, which caused some to look at him like he had just reverted to the normal Naruto everyone knew. At the same time, a few more educated eyed the blonde to see what he would say next. The Yondaime didn't defeat 1,000 shinobi in that battle. That was his number of confirmed kills all through the war. Baka. Several voices screamed at the top of their lungs as Iruka tried to get the class back in order. I don't understand why you admire the Yondaime that much, it's not like you'll ever be like him. Said Kiba in a dismissive that invited challenge. Oh, that struck a nerve that Naruto didn't even know he had. For the first time in his life, Naruto became angry, truly angry, and he couldn't quite put a finger on the reason. Was it the first part of the statement? I don't understand why you admire the Yondaime that much. Didn't they know what he did for everyone? What had he sacrificed? Who had he sacrificed? Or was it the second part of the statement? It's not like you'll ever be like him. Shut the fuck up. Naruto swore and abruptly stood from his seat as he pierced Kiba with a glare that slightly unnerved Kiba. Naruto was about to take the first step towards Kiba when he heard Iruka's booming voice. Naruto. Don't you dare take another step. Naruto slowly shifted his eyes towards Iruka's own, who met the glare unflinchingly. Ah, as if you could do something to. Still locking eyes with the blonde, Iruka's voice shifted target. Kiba. You better not finish that sentence. And promptly, the Inuzuka shut his snout. Although Iruka was a pretty easygoing teacher, besides being academically demanding, he was still a seasoned chunin who had served years on the field. Sit down, Naruto. He didn't raise his voice, but it still held the same level of strictness. As the room filled with tense silence, Naruto kept a staring contest with his teacher before moving the slightest of nods, and he roughly and begrudgingly flopped back in his seat. The tense silence continued before Iruka awkwardly coughed into his fist. Actually, Naruto is right. He said, surprising almost everyone. It's a misconception that the Yondaime Hokage defeated 1,000 Iwa shinobi in that battle alone. Although there is no official record of how many shinobi fell to Yondaime-sama, it's a pretty safe assumption that the number is around that number. The most uneducated students, which was the vast majority, remained speechless. Iruka didn't know how to continue after what just transpired. Luckily, he didn't have to because the bell rang at that moment, signaling the end of classes for the day. With a scowl, Naruto packed his things and was about to head out to train with Lee. He had bonded a little with him since Naruto always saw him training on his way to the clearing, where he would read about his clan and his father's notes. He had been so immersed in both Minato's journals and all the scrolls and books regarding the history of his clan that he hadn't touched anything else at the moment. He would go straight there after leaving the academy and read them for hours. Who would have thought it? Uzumaki Naruto was reading books and actually enjoying it. After that, he would practice a little on what Iruka needed to improve to pass this year. Ninjutsu, Jinjutsu, Konoha history, and chakra theory. He actually knocked out a bit of Konoha just by reading his father's journals, and he could have also advanced in chakra theory if he only understood what the hell his father wrote. Naruto was about to reach the door when he heard Iruka's voice, which still held an air of authority. Naruto, stay here and wait for a moment, please. Naruto just let out a moan but stayed nonetheless. Naruto heard someone snickering before Iruka spoke again. Kiba, I wouldn't be laughing if I was you. You are coming with me. Said in a less kind tone. Iruka exited the classroom with Kiba next to him, looking not too pleased, while Akamaru whined on top of his head. Naruto took a seat at one of the desks near the door and saw as the other students exited the room one by one. However, he completely missed the worried glance Hinata threw him before leaving. Leaving Naruto alone in the classroom was perhaps a miscalculation on Iruka's part. Naruto's bored mind had enough time to devise a prank to teach Kiba a lesson. Speaking of pranks. Iruka was just coming back from chewing the shit out of Kiba for the insensitive comment he had made about the Yondaime. Iruka wouldn't call the man his idol like Naruto, but everyone who had seen the beast and lived to tell the tale was eternally grateful to Yondaime. There wouldn't be any disrespect towards the man on his watch. Iruka opened the door and thought he caught Naruto sitting abruptly, but shrugged it off. He approached the blonde with a neutral expression on his face. Naruto, you shouldn't be picking fights with your classmates. But Iruka-sensei, he sighed. Iruka lifted a hand, cutting off Naruto. I know what he said, and believe me, Kiba won't be doing it again, but you shouldn't lose your temper the way you did. Naruto muttered an apology that he totally didn't mean, and Iruka sighed and decided to change the topic. Where did you learn that expression? What expression? Could you say so I know what you are talking about? He said with a grin. The edges of Iruka's mouth threatened to form the begging of a smile. Don't play with me, Naruto. You shouldn't be using that sort of language in my class well, you should be using it anywhere really. You also need to concentrate in class, Naruto. You did a good job, but you should concentrate more. If you space out, you will miss what I'm teaching, but you have been improving Naruto. Naruto smiled sheepishly and rubbed the back of his head. I know I'm awesome. You still have a lot to catch up Naruto but good job, just try to keep it up. I will. I promise, and Uzumaki Naruto never goes back on his word. Iruka let a small smile appear on his face. Okay, Naruto, but I have some homework for you. Naruto groaned and Iruka channeled his teacher persona. Now Naruto, this will help you concentrate a little more and help with your ninjutsu also. Naruto instantly felt a slight touch on his forehead and when his eyes looked up, he saw a leaf sticking to his forehead. You are going to be doing leaf concentration exercises. It should help you concentrate and it will improve your ninjutsu. Not this again. Yes Naruto, this again. Concentration is key for a shinobi, you will be practicing this exercise to stop losing focus on my class. Naruto just sighed in resignation. Okay, Iruka-sensei. Good. Naruto was about to leave when Iruka spoke again. Naruto thanks for dialing it down on the pranks in my class. I don't know what you are talking about Iruka-sensei. I haven't done any pranks. He said as he rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Naruto, I'm not dumb. I know you have continued your pranks, and just because I haven't caught you yet doesn't mean I don't know it's you. Naruto just gave him a huge and devious grin. His mother had told him that even if he was going to keep up the pranks, at least not be caught, and he was precisely doing that. Although everyone knew it was Naruto doing the pranks, they didn't have any proof yet, but they also had zero doubts that he was behind every last one of them. It was the best of both worlds for him actually. Getting the recognition but not getting the punishment or having to clean after his mess. Yep, he was having his cake and eating too. Whatever Iruka-sensei. See you on Monday. And Naruto rushed out of the classroom with tremendous speed. Iruka just shook his head and smiled and went to open one drawer in his desk to get some papers out to grade, but when he opened it, he received a splash of paint right on his face. Iruka blinked a couple of times before he realized it was orange paint. Naruto. Iruka had grumbled and complained about the paint and having to remove it, but that prankster side of him, that one that had been his loyal companion throughout his years as an academy student, inwardly smiled at the prank. Ugh. Naruto groaned as he stood up from the cold ground after he received a roundhouse kick from Lee right in his ribs. Come on, bushy brows, let's wrap it up for today. It's freezing out here and it's already dark. He complained. The winter in Konoha had begun as they found themselves in the first week of December. Although it seemed that High no Kuni wouldn't be getting any snow this year, the temperature was still low, and combined with the fact the sun had long since set, Naruto was cold. Please Naruto, just 3 more rounds, and then we can leave. Naruto just grunted to Lee, not too pleased, but decided to grant Lee's request. He wasn't that tired. In fact, Lee seemed to be more tired than him, but now, Naruto just wanted to curl up under a warm blanket and go to sleep. He had to give Lee some credit, though. The few times he didn't feel like training that hard, Lee would motivate him by kicking his ass. Training with Lee had proved beneficial for his taijutsu, and they had been training together every day since Lee suggested the idea. Well, not every day. One night when they were walking towards their home and decided to strike up a conversation. During that conversation, he realized that Lee was not only an orphan like him, but that his parents had also died in the Kyuubi attack and now lived with his grandfather. He didn't know why, but it made him slightly guilty, and besides, in his mind, it was only a matter of time before Lee found out the truth. He had come to the conclusion that only adults knew about the Kyuubi being sealed inside him, and that they weren't allowed to talk about it in public, at least. No one ever referred to him as a Jinchuriki or never insinuated anything that would suggest that he was one. It was bizarre, but he assumed it would only be a matter of time before Lee found out something. So, after that day, Naruto stopped going training with Lee. He only returned when he found Lee waiting for him at the academy's exit after missing 2 training sessions. Lee had gone into a speech that Naruto should never give up and needed to continue training hard. Naruto couldn't really refuse Lee after that, so he just followed him to their training spot. They did the last 3 rounds, with Lee winning 2 and Naruto 1, bringing the total for the day to 13 rounds for Naruto and 22 for Lee. After catching their breath for a while and cooling down, they started to make their way out of their training spot. So, bushy brows, are you ready to graduate? There is only a week left of classes. Lee nodded excitedly. I'm ready. I can't wait to be a genin and to start to prove to people that I can be a splendid ninja, even though I can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu. Naruto nodded before what Lee said could sink in. It took him a moment for him to realize what Lee just said, and when he did, he exploded. You can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu. How in the hell are you going to graduate? Naruto's outburst didn't surprise Lee, so he calmly explained the situation. It's not that I can't use ninjutsu or genjutsu really. It's just that I have no talent for either of them, so I focus solely on my taijutsu skills. But how are you going to graduate? Naruto interrupted. Okage-sama called me into his office some days ago, saying that there was a jonin willing to take me as his genin, as long as I pass an exam he has set up for me, and Hokage-sama approved. Hokage-sama and that jonin-san are truly kind people, and I can't wait to show them how much I appreciate their belief in me. Naruto frowned at the mention of the Hokage. He had only seen him once since he learned the truth about everything, and when he saw him, he was so conflicted about what to do that he barely spoke. He was sad, angry, and disappointed with the Hokage. He had known all along, he just had to, and he never once talked to him about it. Why couldn't he know? Did he even realize how many nights filled with pain would have gone away just with the knowledge of him being loved? Still, he had always been kind to him, but he just couldn't see him like he always had after being lied to. If it only was that he thought that maybe, he could have forgiven the old man for it, but the fact that there was zero information about the Uzumaki clan made his blood boil. The Chunin and Jonin paraded the village with his clan insignia, without having a clue of what it meant. He had been the Hokage during the fall of Uzushio in the Second Shinobi World War. Why didn't they teach in the academy about his clan? Naruto, is something wrong? The voice of Lee. Oh, it's nothing. He tried to dismiss it, not really wanting to explain everything to Lee. Are you sure, Naruto? Naruto knew that Lee wouldn't just drop it so. He decided to come up with a reasonable answer. It is just that I'm going to miss training with you. I feel that I have improved a lot. This was true. Naruto's taijutsu had improved considerably by sparring daily with Lee, but that wasn't where the benefits ended. He had come up with the idea of practicing his taijutsu and his chakra control at the same time. He tried to balance a leaf on his head. He could only do it while practicing katas or hitting the log since sparring Lee tended to take most of his concentration away. Regardless of being unable to spar whilst balancing the leaf on his head, his training had helped him get the hang of the Kawarimi no Jutsu, Substitution Jutsu, and Henge no Jutsu, Transformation Jutsu. He hadn't mastered them yet, but more often than not he could do them. But when you graduate, you will go on exciting missions and train with your team and your sensei, and we won't really have time to train together. That's all. The answer he gave was true enough. He will certainly miss training with Lee. He didn't know if Lee considered him a friend, but Naruto sure did, his first real friend. Lee nodded in understanding and contemplated what to say. Don't worry, Naruto. I'm sure I can always find time to see a friend. He finished with a smile. Naruto stopped dead in his tracks as his eyes widened. Why you consider me a friend? Lee just nodded as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Don't you? A huge grin filled Naruto's head as he nodded. Say, I was planning on having ramen tonight. Wanna join me? Lee just nodded excitedly, and both made their way to Ichiraku's. The bell rang, and Naruto started to get his lunch out. He eyed it with misery clear in his eyes. It was just some plain onigiri that were barely holding themselves together. I would also be sad if that was my lunch. Naruto looked to his left only to see Chimjai looking at him with pity in his eyes. They had been sitting together during the class with Shikamaru. What's with that lunch? You usually bring chips or something less sad. Naruto just let out a huge sigh. I know, but I promised someone I would start eating better and well, I don't really know how to cook and no one can teach me. This is the only thing I kind of know how to make at home. Naruto had asked Tucci if he could teach him how to cook, but funnily enough, he was a disaster in the kitchen if he wasn't cooking ramen. He almost burned Naruto's apartment to the ground by accident. The old man had profusely apologized to Naruto, but Naruto just laughed it off. He actually found it pretty hilarious looking back at the memory. I could ask my mother to teach you, although my parents are out of town dealing with some clan business and won't come back until the Rin festival. In the meantime, I can share what I brought today with me. It's just barbecue left over from yesterday's dinner. That's healthy enough, right? Offered Chimjai. Thanks a ton, Chimjai. I really didn't want to eat this, and are you sure your parents wouldn't mind? He asked skeptically. Chimjai was about to respond, but a yawn followed by a third voice interrupted him to it. I can ask my mother, she always says my father and I don't appreciate her cooking enough. I'm sure she will be fine with it. I thought you were sleeping, Shikamaru. Chimjai said. The troublesome bell woke me up in time to listen to your conversation. Anyway, what do you say, Naruto? Shikamaru actually had a reason for this invitation besides helping the blonde orphan. Not that it was the whole reason for his invitation, but he saw it as a way to kill two birds with one stone. He had long since noticed that adults had a special distaste for Naruto and was curious about it. Sure, the blonde could be extremely troublesome in his own words, but he never did anything too bad. The prank of dyeing Kiba's and Akamaru's hair orange and releasing cats on the Inuzuka compound had been hilarious. It did cause a bunch of problems, but it was the only time he felt that Naruto might have crossed a line, but the adults had always disliked Naruto way before that prank. He was curious to see how his parents would react to the blonde's presence. He also took notice of Naruto's reaction and hesitance. It seems that he knows that adults don't like him that much. Sure, thanks Shika," answered a still doubtful Naruto. "Cool, let's go today after class." Today? But you haven't even asked your mother if she is fine with helping me." "I'm sure she won't mind Naruto, and maybe that way you don't have to eat something so depressing tomorrow or share lunch with Shinji." He was sure that Shinji would have shared his lunch again, no matter how hard it would have been for him, it was just who he was. As for his parents, well, he wasn't really sure, but he hoped this didn't backfire on Naruto. Naruto simply nodded to Shikamaru and started sharing lunch with Shinji. The amount of food would have normally been enough for two children, but not for an Akamichi and Uzumaki Naruto. While the three conversed, a pale-eyed girl with blue midnight hair listened to the conversation with a frown. She only hoped she could do something to help Naruto. After thinking for a while, she got an idea, and it was perfect since he would be busy most of the afternoon. Once the day was finished, Naruto told Shikamaru and Shinji to wait for him. Naruto just went to tell Lee that he would be learning how to cook, and Lee just said that a good diet is important to see results in training. After that, Naruto met up with Shikamaru and Shinji, and they went their way towards Shikamaru's house. Naruto was nervous to say the least. He was quiet and fidgeting. "Oh man. Why did I agree to this? If something goes wrong Shikamaru will stop talking to me and probably Shinji too." His nerves didn't go unnoticed by Shikamaru. "Naruto, stop worrying. My mother is a troublesome woman, but she is pretty nice to our guests." "Shikamaru is right, Yoshino Oba-sen has always been nice to me," said Shinji trying to calm down Naruto. Naruto just nodded but still remained rather nervous, although slightly less so. As they entered the Nara compound, the look some of his clansmen threw at Naruto didn't escape Shikamaru, and a frown developed on his face. "Even people from my clan seem to have some sort of problem with Naruto. I'm pretty sure I would recall if he ever played some sort of prank on my clan." A few glares and skeptical looks also didn't escape Naruto, but not wanting to mess with Shikamaru's clan, he decided to concentrate on the compound itself. The compound was located at the south edges of the village, and it held an air of tranquility and peace that Naruto wasn't really known for. The compound was on the outskirts of a forest. It didn't quite compare to the jungle surrounding the Senju compound, and the feeling of virgin nature wasn't there, but it was a nice place. Shikamaru slid the door to his home open. "Tadaima, Ka-san," he said lazily. "Bakari Shikamaru." Naruto wasn't a jealous person, but that simple exchange of words hit Naruto like a sledgehammer to the gut. He saw how Shikamaru barely reacted with a grunt, and he couldn't help that his hand balled up into a fist. "Must be nice," he thought as he studied the floor. "Oh, hi Shinji-kun, and who is this?" A curious voice that Naruto never had heard brought him back from his thoughts. His eyes met the brown ones of the woman with fair skin, dark brown hair made into a ponytail with 3 strands framing her face, and she wore a dark pink shirt under an apron. A few seconds of silence went by as Naruto had been caught off guard, and his nerves suddenly returned, making his mouth dry. Shikamaru and Shinji just eyed Naruto, a little bewildered by Naruto's shyness, while the woman just stood expectantly. "Well Shikamaru, aren't you going to introduce us?" she said scoldingly. Shikamaru was careful and bit his tongue to avoid muttering his signature word in front of his mom. He may give his dad a hard time for being whipped, but he was also careful not to trigger the woman. "This is Uzumaki Naruto, he is in my year at the academy. Naruto, this is my mom Yoshino." Yoshino instantly recognized the name. Almost everyone above a specific age knew of Naruto by name and his status as Konoha's Jinchuriki. She just eyed the blonde with curiosity. "Nice to meet you Naruto-kun. Welcome to our home," she said with a small smile. Thanks, it's nice to meet you too, Yoshino Santabeo," stammered Naruto. Yoshino felt the whispers of familiarity but didn't know what caused it, so she brushed it off. Shikamaru studied his mom carefully to look for any sort of reaction, but other than curiosity, he didn't find anything. "I'll bring you something to eat while you guys hang out," said Yoshino. "Actually, Ka-san, Naruto here wanted to learn how to cook and told him you wouldn't have any problems teaching him. You don't, right?" Yoshino was actually surprised by the request and a little glad. "Sure, I don't mind," she said before, and an idea developed in her head. "Actually, I think you should also learn how to cook as well. That way you can help prepare dinner." Shikamaru almost fell over after hearing his mother's words. Leave it to his mother to spin his plans around and turn the situation into a troublesome one. Still, he knew better than to complain. Even through his mental complaining, it didn't escape his mind how Naruto behaved. It was strange, to say the least. He half expected Naruto to call his mother old or something. "Sounds good to me," said Shinji, a little excited at the prospect of food. "Good, follow me to the kitchen," responded Yoshino, and the three little shinobi in training followed her. As they walked silently to the kitchen, they passed a hallway with pictures hanging from the wall. Naruto's eyes fixated on a particular frame. It was a picture of 4 people. A white-haired man standing next to a chubby-looking kid, a girl with brown hair tied in some sort of knot, and a blonde with spiky hair and blue eyes. Naruto stopped abruptly to analyze the picture, and unless he was mistaken, he was pretty sure that it was his father, although looking much younger than in the picture he had. He wore an unzipped gray tracksuit with 3 blue stripes that went down the sleeves. Underneath, he wore mesh armor and finished his outfit with deep blue pants and black shinobi boots. "What's wrong, Naruto?" said an annoyed Shikamaru after nearly bumping into Naruto. Naruto didn't turn his head to address Shikamaru. "Is that the Yondaime Hokage?" Yoshino stopped in her tracks when she heard those words and peered over her shoulder, only to see the 3 kids staring at the picture that she thought they would be looking at. She approached them as she smiled at the old photo. "He is. You have a good eye to be able to recognize him when he looks like a kid. We actually were on the same genin team when we graduated from the academy. That was Minato, he was Hiroto, and he is Jiraiya-sensei, and that was me when I was your age." She pointed at the members of Team Jiraiya one by one. Jiraiya. That name got Naruto's attention. Yoshino nodded. "Jiraiya of the Sannin, he was our sensei." The Sannin. That was one of his monikers. He earned it while fighting alongside Tsunade-sama in the Second Shinobi World War with that Orochimaru traitor. It must be him. He is my godfather. It makes sense. If he was Two-chan sensei, they must have been close enough to make him my godfather, and he is also alive. Yoshino's smile became a little melancholic. "I haven't seen Jiraiya-sensei in years. We are all that's left of our team. Hiroto died during the Third War, and Minato, well, you know what happened," she said, trying not to touch the subject of Kyuubi. "Where is he? Jiraiya, I mean?" Naruto asked suddenly. Yoshino went deep in thought. "I don't really know. Jiraiya-sensei was never the type to stay in the village for too long. He enjoyed long missions that would let him meet new places and faces. I think the last time I saw him was more than 11 years ago." A frown then came to her face. "The last I heard was that he was writing some books." "And the rest of the Sannin? I remember hearing about them, but aren't they supposed to be famous?" "I heard of them being in the village," said a curious Shikamaru. "Tsunade-sama left the village when the Third Shinobi World War ended and hasn't returned back, at least to my knowledge, but I didn't know her that much. As for Orochimaru, well, he is a Nukenin. He defected some years ago, it was a huge scandal, and they haven't caught him yet. I didn't know you were in the same team as the Yondaime when you were a genin. You never told me about it," said Shikamaru. "It was a long time ago, and well, there are some things I rather not remember." It was true. In the shinobi world, if someone doesn't share information that they aren't prohibited from sharing, they either don't trust you, are ashamed of what happened, it's too painful to remember, or it is not your business. Sometimes all 4 were factored in. "Anyway, let's go to the kitchen and start your lessons." And they started walking again. "What was he like?" asked Naruto. Said Yoshino. "The Yondaime Hokage, what was he like?" "Oh, well Minato was brilliant and driven. He always had great aspirations, even when he was just a child. He always dreamed about being Hokage. He was certainly a genius, although he never referred to himself as one, he picked things faster than anyone did. Ninjutsu, taijutsu, tactical analysis, leadership, even Fukinjutsu. But for all his talent, he never slacked off." She threw a not-so-subtle glance at her son. He believed that his talent was only a reason to work harder. Also, despite his innate talent, he was humble, although he did acquire some flashiness from Jiraiya-sensei. Above all, Minato was loyal and kind, but would show no mercy when someone endangered those close to him. That's part of the reason he made a great Hokage. He loved the village to a fault. Naruto seemed to absorb all the knowledge Yoshino was giving out, his concentration on her words never wavered. "Why the interest in him in particular?" asked Yoshino. Naruto was about to respond with the truth, but closed his mouth before he could speak. "He is Naruto's idol," supplied Shinji. "He has always admired him as far as I can remember." "Really?" She turned to look at Naruto and smiled. "He is a good idol to have. Do you want to be Hokage just like him?" Yoshino said as they arrived at the kitchen. Naruto went deep in thought. What did it mean to be Hokage? To love the village? Sure, he thought the village was beautiful, but he knew it wasn't just about loving the village itself, it also meant the villagers. To be willing to sacrifice everything and anything for the good of the village to love the villagers. He was grateful to the Ichirakus, but they were just two people in a village of nearly 100,000 inhabitants. He didn't have to ask himself if he loved the villagers. The answer was clear as day. Now, as for Yoshino's question. Did he want to be Hokage? Seeing the decisions his father had to make and what the third had hidden from him was the slap that woke him up to stare at the meaning of what it truly was to be Hokage. And although he didn't think he could do it, he still respected the position because it was something he didn't know he could ever do. It wasn't just about being skilled, working hard and strong. If it were, his confidence would have let him say yes, but it just wasn't the case. He couldn't just work hard to love the village, that much he understood. No, I don't think I want to be Hokage. The words felt weird coming out of his mouth but not necessarily wrong. Shikamaru's and Chimjai's jaws nearly hit the floor as they spoke in unison. What? But I do want to surpass him as shinobi, Dadabeo. Again, Yoshino felt the whispers of a memory in the recesses of her mind, but put it off for later. It's good that you also have high goals and expectations. She said with a smile before throwing Shikamaru another one of her looks. Shikamaru and Chimjai were about to question him on why the lifelong dream he would shout for everyone to hear was no longer his ambition, but Naruto cut them off before they could even finish a word and asked Yoshino to start the lesson. Shikamaru and Chimjai were left with a doubt in their minds. It didn't sit well with him to say out loud that he didn't love the villagers and it would raise questions he definitely didn't want to answer. Yoshino began teaching the three of them. One of the kids was really motivated to learn, another just went along with it, and the last one found the situation extremely troublesome. After a couple of hours, Shikamaru took advantage of how Naruto was his mother's main focus and decided to take a nap on the dining table, and Chimjai didn't really advance because he kept eating everything. Yoshino chose to put the scolding Shikamaru would receive on hold and focused on teaching Naruto. You are really motivated to learn, aren't you? It's good to see someone motivated in this home for a change. She joked with him as she showed him how to cut some vegetables. Naruto was a truly alright kid, in her opinion. Initially, he was a little nervous and shy, but he quickly overcame it. Sure, she could see the energy that had gotten him in trouble in the past, and he might have lacked some manners. Still, considering his situation, it wasn't completely unexpected. He was a good kid in her book. Naruto laughed and then answered. I made a promise to someone to start eating better, and I kind of need to learn how to cook to keep that promise, you know. Yoshino raised a questioning eyebrow as she cut a fish. You are doing all this for a promise? Naruto nodded fervently. Uzumaki Naruto never goes back on his word to Bayo. Uzumaki never goes back on his word, she mentally repeated before her eyes widened and he turned her head fast enough to make her neck crack. She almost thought she could see two ghosts standing behind Naruto. The ghost of her blonde teammate and a rough-tempered Kunoichi with long silky red hair. The only thing that brought her out of her stupor was the sudden and sharp pain she felt in her left hand. Looking down, she saw that she had accidentally cut herself. The cut was deep and bleeding. Naruto saw her bleeding hand. Are you okay? He asked, slightly worried. I'm sorry for distracting you. Naruto said, a little afraid. Yoshino just smiled sweetly. It was my fault, don't worry about it. I'll just get something for this and be right back. Yoshino did just that and she passed a hallway that led to the bathroom when she saw her old Genin team's picture and her eyes bored into Minato. They are identical but he can't be. She knew Kushina had been pregnant but she thought the baby had died with her and now it all made sense. Minato had sealed the Kyuubi in his son. Her heart instantly went out to Naruto as she realized how bad a hand he truly had been dealt right from the day he was born. Does he even know? He doesn't seem to know. Why would something like this be kept from him? She questioned herself before she realized that it must have been for Naruto's safety. She thought about telling him, but it could spring up trouble. If she told him and it turned out that they weren't his parents, she would have just given hope to an orphan that wasn't true, or if it was true, it probably was a village secret and she could get in all sorts of problems. Also, if word got out that he was indeed the last remaining Uzumaki and son of the Yondaime Hokage, there was no telling how many people would be attempting to get to him. Either way, she felt it wasn't her place to tell him. She barely knew him, but thought she couldn't act like the boy didn't exist. While Yoshino was tending to her wound and dealing with a mental storm, the lazy head of the Nara clan arrived at his home. As usual, he didn't even bother to make his presence known. He smelled food in the air and lazily made his way to the kitchen, only to be extremely surprised by what he saw. Shikaku's eyes traveled from his equally lazy son to Chimjai, finally resting on Naruto. It was quite bizarre to find Konoha's resident Jinchuriki and #1 prankster cooking in his house of all places. His mind instantly started to go through all the possible reasons why Naruto was cooking in his home before he arrived at a conclusion. Troublesome. Like you wouldn't believe. Shikamaru didn't bother to lift his head from the table or open his eyes. Naruto just turned his head to see a man he assumed was Shikamaru's dad standing in the middle of the kitchen. He was quite at a loss for words on what to do at the moment. Luckily, Shikaku seemed to read his mind. "Nara Shikaku, nice to meet you and that sort of thing, carry on," he said before leisurely sitting beside his son and greeting Chinchai. This time Shikamaru did lift his head. "Naruto wanted to learn how to cook and I told him mom would be willing to teach him and now we are here." Shikaku lazily nodded as Yoshino entered the kitchen again and greeted his lazy husband. He noticed Yoshino looked paler than usual and seemed to be eyeing Naruto out of the corner of her eye every few seconds. He locked eyes with her and raised an eyebrow, but Yoshino wordlessly made him understand that she would tell him later.